Oh. There she is. You ready, Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk, call this to order, please.
Councilmember Jimmy Clanton.
Here.
Councilmember Rob Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Jasmine Cobble. Councilmember George Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Diana Doma.
Here.
Mayor Jason Leary.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate it. Folks, we have as we do every council meeting, we love to grace our presence with those men and women of the cloth. This evening we have Pastor Charles Benefield from the Greater Heights International Ministries at historic Flat Rock. If we stand and Pastor Benefield, if you give us the invocation, please.
Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to come together. We thank you for business matters. Handle your gas, Lord God, that all. Father God, we pray right now for victims that act. Pray for the citizens of Stonecrest, citizens of Georgia, citizens of the United States of America. We pray for our leaders, God, our business leaders, our schools. Pray right now for our policemen and our firemen and our emergency. Pray for all the churches in the area in the favor of God for this city. We ask, Lord God, that you just bless the economy, bless every person that is here. Give you the glory, all the in our Lord's name.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Pledge of allegiance, folks. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Council will move to the approval of the City Council agenda. I have a couple of changes. From the public hearing sector, we're going to remove RZ-19-001. On the presentations, Shakira Hall, our procurement specialist, is in training until Friday, so she won't be introduced this evening. Under new business, number 5, the first reading of chapter 13 with the health regulations.
You removing that?
Yes, sir.
Which one was it? This was the last one you removed?
The last one was number 5 from new business.
Okay, I got distracted.
For let's see, first reading of chapter 13 health regulations.
Yep.
Okay, that's what we have.
Can you go over the third one again? Which?
The third one was number 5 under new business.
Okay, I got that one, and I got under public hearing RZ 19001.
Yes,
There
ma'am.
was one other one.
Oh, on the presentations,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
the Shakira Hall. Yes, sir.
the removal of that public hearing,
Yes, sir.
you have to approve, the council has to approve the removal.
Individually from the.
Yes, sir. You have to take action to defer that matter.
Okay.
The applicant's asking to defer it, and it requires action of council to actually. Take
All right.
So you can leave it on the agenda for the time
Then
being.
when we get to it.
Yes, sir.
I got it. Thank you, sir. RZ 19001. Well, deferral. Okay. Referral. Okay, so that leaves us two on the presentations, B, Shakira Hall, and under new business, number 5, first reading for Chapter 13, Health Regulations.
That's the wrong.
Any more clarity, folks? Did I say it right this time? I'm sorry, Council. I'm sorry. Good. Okay.
I've got a draft. I get the original.
Oh, I got you.
Numbers.
You straight, Councilman?
I'm straight now.
All right. I'll take a mover for approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
I move that we approve the city council meeting agenda April 22nd, 2019 with the stated changes. Under presentation, Mr. Kira Hall will not be here today to be introduced. And under new business, number 5, first reading of Chapter 13, Health Regulations.
So moved. To have a second.
I second it.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Approval of the City Council meeting agenda. Council will go to our minutes. First one, I'll give you an opportunity for both separately. Approval of the February 25th, 2019 City Council meeting minutes. Any changes or addition, Council?
I'm still looking for it, but I can tell you that there were a couple of errors that need to be fixed. One is Mary Lowry on the first page. That probably needs to be corrected. And there was an item which says that the mayor and Councilman Clanton approved CTP, and we know that didn't happen.
Appreciate that.
So those two.
Okay.
Just those two.
All right. We see anything else, Council?
That's it.
All right. I'll take an approval for February 25th.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
move for approval of the minutes of February 25th with the 2 corrections noted.
All right. Properly moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes approved. Move to the second one. Approval of the April 8th, 2019 City Council meeting minutes. Give you a few minutes to peruse. All right, we see anything?
Mayor, if I may, while everybody's reading the minutes, I just want to make everybody aware that going forward, our city clerk is committed to email you guys the minutes from the day sometime late tomorrow, and let everybody start looking at them, way ahead of time. Don't have to wait for the packet or anything like that. We're gonna get them to you a lot more in advance, so everybody can kind of be ready when we get to this stage.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
We appreciate that.
I just want to make sure this is correct. We adjourned at 8:42. It's like
Yeah.
golden ticket, like
Yeah.
slam dunk.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
We do that.
Yeah. All right. All right. Okay. Anything, folks? Seeing none, I'll take an approval for the April 8th minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir,
move for approval of the April 8th minutes.
properly moved. Do I have a second? And second. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? City Council meeting minutes for April 8th, 2019 passes. Miss Megan Reed. I did everything but say your name. All right. Good deal. Good deal. Madam Clerk, you now have the proud moment of public comments. All right.
We have Miss Faye Cofield, and do you want me to set the timer for 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
Right.
I've been doing free for the last.
Then give this is. I'm gonna be on a little bit, you can start now. I'm gonna be on one of those is mine. I'm gonna be on a little bit different subject today. I'm going to be talking about the situation with the cell phone tower. And if you notice in your package, you have 3 pages. You have first of all, this came directly from the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners clerk. It was handed to me by their office, and it has been in my custody. I refuse to take any documentation from anybody else because I wanted to make sure that I was very clear with what had happened and what had not happened. Now, if you look at the second page, that page clearly states when the meeting was called to order, the time it was called to order, and who called it to order, and who was present. The third page, the last page, states that the meeting started at 9 o'clock and it ended at 7. And it ended at 10 p.m. Now, there's been a lot of talk about what was said at that meeting and that DeKalb County was not clear as to what they proposed for that property. But if you read the application on page 347, DeKalb County clearly stated in the highlighted information, which is paragraph 2, the applicants desire to use this property for a daycare during the summer months only, to take 20 to 30 children 5 mornings a week to swim in an existing pool and spend an hour on crafts. The subject property was being used for such activities 3 or 4 years ago, but ceased this use because of improper zoning. They will fence the property under C2 zoning to keep the children enclosed within the property. No one appeared to speak in opposition. And then if you look at their decision, it says the motion was made by Commissioner Lanier, it was seconded by Commissioner Coolidge, and it was unanimously passed to approve the application as conditioned by the applicant. So I'm at a loss why I'm the only one that could find this completed document. That is the actual vote of what was said. Just like when you vote on things and you make a specific statement as to what is to be done and what is to not be done, these documents are contained in the records of the Board of Commissioners, who have their own clerk, and the page numbers are clearly there for you to be able to find them and to verify it. But as I said, I do not understand why the planning department or whoever issued the special permit did not see that it was conditionally zoned for a period of the summer only and it was conditionally zoned for a summer camp with specific things on it. So if you have any other questions, I would strongly suggest that you can verify that with the DeKalb County Board.
Time.
Mm-hmm. Next.
Need an iPhone.
Rico Adams.
All right.
Good evening, all.
Good.
I was just notified of this situation this past month about this takeover from Stonecrest over Browns Mill Recreation Center. I've been in this area for 13 years before you guys became a city. And I'm just perplexed by what's going on with the situation. I stand before you. I've coached kids down there almost 7, 8 years in football, basketball. And a lot of kids, they said, bring today. You can't bring them because they're testing. They're testing this week. I have 2 boys, a 15-year-old and 11-year-old. They both went through this recreation center. You have other kids who's going through this recreation center. Now you guys are going to take a summer camp situation, and then it's no longer for the kids to go nowhere for the summer. My understanding, I think you guys just want the pool area. You want to generate that money. You want that money for the city. You can have the money for the city. What about the kids, though? I don't worry about no money. My taxes don't went up anyway. So I'm not worried about no money. As long as I can go make my money during the day, wherever I work. But it's about the kids. Think about the kids before you guys think about the money. Money comes first before it seems like it comes for a lot of you guys. From my understanding, I know you were probably a businessman before you became a politician. Is that correct?
You want me to answer?
Don't worry about it.
Oh, no. We're going to do this. Yes, sir. And still am a businessman.
Okay.
And I'm going to allow you some more time because we're going to have a little dialogue today. But I want you to continue with your statement.
But my thing is, though, about the Browns Mill Recreation Center.
Yep.
Like I said, this came up for me from a blind shot.
No worries.
I didn't hear anything about this till March. You guys are going to get rid of those people's job down there. I've been good with Mr. Haygood, his crew. I know all of them very well. They work with the kids. They have a very good relationship with a lot of kids and who come through there the last 10 years since I've been down there. So this is probably my last year my son attending there. Yes, he's a 5th grader, going to middle school. But think about it. Think about the kids first before you guys think about the money all the time in the area that you're trying to represent.
Right.
Think about the things that we also need before we try to take over a recreation center for DeKalb County. Think about the zoning and the things that needs to be for the streets repaving, the lights, street lights. There's a lot of things going on in Stonecrest areas that's going on now that I haven't seen anything go on the last 2 years. I don't even know which one of you guys represent my district, but y'all need to make yourself known. I mean, y'all seem like y'all just want to jump ship. Hey, I'm represent Stonecrest. That ain't the way it's going for me.
Okay, hold this gentleman's time. Mr. DePalma, come front. I respect everything you said. You and I have no issue. We're a little different than other places. And what I mean by that is that particularly if people have been to a meeting for the first time or missed some of the things that we said, or it's okay. This is we're small enough to do this and we're large enough to be effective. But I want you to have some information along with everybody else that's in the audience because some other folks might have the same stuff or the same information. So personally, so that you'll know, between you and I, my kids came up through the Browns Mill system. It's been some years because I'm an old dude and you're not, but it's been around. It's been around that long, and we do have some solid plans. Mr. DePalma, if you will indulge me for 2 or 3 minutes. Mr. DePalma is the Parks and Rec director that we have for Stonecrest. And I want to preface this by saying, sir, tell me your name again.
Rico Adams.
Mr. Adams, is that by law, by state statute, and by us becoming a city, we had to take over the 3 services that we dedicated to. Parks and Rec was one of those services. But I want him to give us if you don't mind, Mr. Palmer, and you can stay with us, at least a 2 or 3 minute overview as to some of the things that he said, if that's okay with you. And I have no idea what he's going to tell you, so this better be good, Sean.
Sir, I do have a PowerPoint. That was the presentation that I was going to do prior.
Gotcha.
That we weren't allotted. I can do it later on my time slot if you like.
Sure thing.
To just refer back to some of the items Adams mentioned specifically, so I won't go through the whole all the details at this time. But as far as the pool will not be in this series of acquisition included in the City of Stonecrest. It will remain with DeKalb County, the actual pool facility and the funding that is either spent or generated during this summer season.
So is that the pool that Mr. Adams is talking about?
Yeah, the aquatic center that he mentioned regarding money and revenue.
So, Mr. Adams, were you speaking of the aquatic center? No, just stay. Or Browns Mill Rec Center? Both. Okay, good
So
deal.
that's why I isolated the aquatic center, because Mr. Adams did highlight that in his comments. The second thing was the comment about the children and it not being money. In fact, in the recommendation that we have tonight, you're going from summer camp that would run a family of 1 with 1 child, $528 in the DeKalb system.
Right.
And with our system, the average is $225 and can be as low as $175 for the entire summer. So if we're talking about money, saving families money, as Mr. Adams did point out, he works hard for his money.
Got it.
That is what we're striving to do, sir.
See this PowerPoint.
Okay.
It sounds good from what he's saying.
Yeah.
But
So-
I want to see what the PowerPoint is saying, because I'm not the only one in here who probably has children.
Oh, no question.
Situation.
Well, we knew that this was coming up. I didn't quite know what the depth of the savings were, and along with the people that are working there, because we care about the whole piece of it. But thank you for allowing me to exchange with you so that you and I could talk, and then others could hear at the same time. But we got a real good program.
Okay, that's including the after school care as well, sir. The situation you're.
The proposal that we're recommending today is strictly focused on summer camp. It does have a stipulation in that MOU to extend out for the school year. To give you pricing, again, Mr. Adams did bring up cost to families and how hard he works for his money.
Right.
The DeKalb, and I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head, I believe it's $111 per week? No, per month. Per month? Yeah. I'll get the numbers, but I believe
No
it's
worries.
$111 per month, whereas for our recommendation, it will be $65 for the entire school year for the family of 1 child.
That's good numbers.
So you're talking about roughly for 8-month school year, slightly close to $900 in the DeKalb system. In our system that we're recommending is $65. And if you are part of the healthcare system, it is free if you're part of the Mera Group healthcare provider. Thank you,
Man.
Mr. Riley.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
How is these employees gonna get paid for that low amount of money? I mean, who's gonna pay these people that's kind of low income? Like,
Currently, the Stonecrest resident citizen pays into a millage rate to this DeKalb County. That millage rate runs them roughly over $500,000, roughly
Sure.
about $500-something thousand for operations. We're estimating with this vendor and the additional support vendors that we're bringing in, it would be about $308,000 to $320,000. So there will be a savings for the taxpayer overall in the expenditure from that millage, sir.
Ms. Adams?
one more thing for you. He's running every time I want to ask him something. So these employees, where he's gonna get them from? Are they gonna be new hirees? Are they gonna be current employees for this area? Because it's just one rec in the DeKalb County in this area.
Okay.
On this side, where Stonecrest represents, right?
So, this is very unusual what we're doing right now.
Yes, it is.
But I wanted to rub the genie lamp 3 times. It's the third genie rub. But I want him to answer this question. Then we'll go from there. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Two things. As far as Mr. Adams did mention the cab employee by name, and the staff there is employed by DeKalb County. They belong to DeKalb County. They don't belong to the City of Stonecrest. Now, our vendor is going to hire within the Metro Atlanta area, including Stonecrest residents. We have an in-house individual that worked for the vendor prior, locally grew up at Browns Mill, and that individual will also oversee the contract representing the City of Stonecrest to ensure that our city is represented in South DeKalb as far as resident to employee is represented in that in our after-school program.
Good deal. So we'll do best possible, Mr. Adams, to make sure that people that we know, like, love, quite frankly, that's in that area, that they have the right opportunity, because that's what this is all about, to make sure that we take care of the community, the people that work there, and most importantly, our kids that come through the system. My man. Appreciate you. All right.
Miss Geraldine Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Giving me the opportunity to talk about and also the council members, talk about that park there. I don't have a little child. It's been a long time since I had a little child to come up, but I go down there occasionally. And we, as a community, we serve them or we participate in whatever they have there for the kids, because they are the ones going to have to take over when we are no longer here.
Right.
We can't forget that. And I was listening back and forth as to the amount of money that we're going to save, and which is good, but I understand that we get what we pay for. I've gone down there on several occasions, and that park there is a parent's paradise. They do everything down there for those kids, and the director, I don't even know his name, but I deal with him a lot of times. He is just fit for that. It's as if he was born to do that for those kids. And this is our most important thing. We can bring people in there for less money, because in my experience, what you pay for, that's what you get. We got to make sure the caliber stays as it is.
Yes, ma'am.
And my suggestion is, while we lean in on that particular one, which to me, I learned that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We need that little hole down there that they call a park on Salem Road that will hold about 2 cars and no lights. It's a dangerous place. We need to work on what we have that need to be worked on and add more parks in that area. The people over in the other area of Stonecrest shouldn't have to bring their kids and stuff all the way over here to Browns Mill. Let's start building, keep what we have that's good, and build more for the people that live on the other side. To me, in my opinion, that park down there is running itself, and it doesn't need any touching. Okay? Somebody must agree with me, but that's my idea of it. Just leave that alone. I say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
All right.
Mr. Bob Foster.
My comment's going to be in conjunction with the comments made earlier by Faye Cofield in reference to the cell phone tower. It also is going to be directed to Mr. Denmark. Mr. Denmark, a few days ago, you issued a report labeled by some as a legal opinion in regards to the construction of the cell phone tower. But in your opinion or your report, you did not cite any case law to support your opinion. So what we're asking you to do is issue a supplemental report citing your case law. Otherwise, we will simply view your opinion as a personal opinion and not a legal opinion. So if you would issue a supplemental report citing the case law, we would certainly appreciate that, sir.
All right.
Miss Kari Lewis? Mr. Kari Lewis.
All right. Ms. Lewis?
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
I'll be addressing two matters. The first one is concerning the general process of hearings. First, the cell phone tower did not have a hearing, but we have properties that have not been, in the queue in excess of 3 months. So I would like to have a response on that. I'm here on behalf of my parents. It is 6975 Browns Mill Walk, District 5. They have a consultant who they've paid to work on that property, consult with Stonecrest, and there has been no response. So I have to make this public because there has been no dealing with that in a number of months, in excess of 3. The second thing I'll talk about, and I think I'll be addressing the residents. One thing my generation has a little bit of an issue with is our generation is told, do as we say, but not as we do. And we have a lot of elders who do not do the things that they want us to do. For instance, in Stonecrest, a lot of people said they wanted restaurants, and I'm talking to the residents, not the council. They said they wanted restaurants. We have local people who've come to the city, started restaurants, and you know who I'm talking about with the 97%, local people. Stonecrest has no place where we control our own food coming into the city. We don't have control of our food supply. We don't have control of our water supply, and that's economic. So we're saying we want Whole Foods. We have farms in other cities. We're not getting a food supply to Stonecrest to have that in our vicinity. And I'm talking to the residents. Let me be clear. This is about business. This is about controlling one's own destiny. And governmentally, I understand that the city cannot do anything about controlling a demographic and what they control in business. So that's why I'm saying I'm speaking with the residents on this. People go over to Midtown, Buckhead, East Atlanta, because I'm just going to say it. It's been the sit-in movement has never ended. We've never gotten over that. So we're always saying to our children that black whatever is not good enough by our actions. And when I think about starting a business, when I think about Stonecrest, because I'm proud of the city, I don't live here. I live in South Rockdale. But I know everything that happens in Stonecrest affects South Rockdale because it's so close. So we're seeing that local residents won't support things that are in our demographic. So why are we going to go out and support and create businesses, do creative ideas, supporting our own community, getting food that's grown by us in our own community if local residents, who are 97%, won't support it? Thank you.
Stay at the mic. Couple of things. One, tell me your name again, sir.
My name is Kari Lewis.
Kari, like us.
I was here a year ago. I came from China.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Mr. Lewis, what was the address of the
6975 Browns Mill Walk.
Okay. And there's a consultant that's been on this?
Yes.
All right. Last thing, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Gentleman like yourself that has traveled abroad, I want to ask you your opinion on something. Two, there's been a debate between Whole Foods and Sprouts. If you had a choice, if we could get one of those two, which one would you lean toward?
Would you like a candid answer, sir?
Yes, sir.
I say we create our own.
Okay. Choice number 3. Create
when
own.
When I was in China, Chinese people, they made sure that they were not dependent on the West.
Okay.
So everything they did, they made sure that they could produce it themselves, grow it themselves, import it themselves, so they were not dependent on another people.
Okay.
I say we make it ourselves.
All right, Mr. Lewis. I know how to find you from here.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna have a conversation about this other thing too.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And welcome back. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.
Papasan Canty. Yes.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've been here 19 years. Bought a house when I first got here and still here today. Retired from the military as a major. Retired from the police department. I came here. I started working at Brownsville Recreation Center, martial arts. Since that time, I became the director of Brownsville. Became the director of Lucius Sanders, Hamilton, and also up in Brookhaven when they did the changeover. So my thing is, what are we going to do with the kids that are now working here and the kids that are in college looking to come home for the summer to a summer employment? Because that's where we got our mainstream college. So I haven't heard anything about that. Now's the time that they normally are filling out applications, come on board and going through the interview process. It's almost like there's nobody concerned about them. I got to get me a job. I don't need a job. I'm retired. You heard me say I'm retired from 3 different jobs. I don't need one. I got sons and daughters that are in college now. I even got a grandson in college.
Wow.
He worked for Browns. I'm looking to see what we're going to do for the students and the young men and ladies that are on board now. 'Cause that's a lot of experience that we're talking about letting go. Can't do that. Can't let all of them go. You're going to put somebody's kid in the hands of somebody that doesn't have an inkling of how to work with a child. What do you do when a child starts screaming and yelling? We got a lot of teachers that work with us at the rec center. We need to handle all of that. Can't forget about them. Last thing I want to say is the last job I had, we had a director, came from out of town. And that director didn't care 2 cents about what went on in DeKalb County. He needed to know how he was going home on the weekend. You need to work that out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good deal. All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, speakers, for your public comments. All right, Council, we will move to appointments of the Housing Authority members.
Here we have one more.
Okay.
Ms. Smith.
All right.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dayle Loman Smith. I'm a resident of District 4. I'm also the president of the Stonecrest Citizens Coalition, as well as the vice president of the Browns Mill Elementary School PTA. And based on the information that was available to us that was publicized on the website, which did not include the contract that is being proposed to be voted on this evening, that still is not on the website. Our recommendation has been to either table or to deny the current recommendation to enter into a contract for youth services for Browns Mill Recreation Center. The reason for that, some individuals have brought up, but I want to start with the process, which was that there was no conversation whatever with the families and parents who utilized the center before any of these decisions were made or anything was proposed. In fact, many people found out quite indirectly or by accident by calling and trying to register their children to come to summer camp. And you heard the first gentleman who was not, aware other than that, what was going on in terms of the city beginning to purchase the recreation facilities. Those of us who were aware that the city was going to purchase the recreation facilities were not aware that the city was planning to outsource everything to an outside vendor. So that was the major concern, is that the fact that parents and families were not consulted in this process, and that it seems to be quite rushed. It was our impression through the Parks Committee that was just established that the city was going to allow the county to continue to manage operations there through the summer until the fall, and that would give us time to prepare for that takeover. And now, for some reason, there seems to be this rush to have the city take over the summer camp and, as we've heard, lay off those staff. I did happen to get a hold of the proposed contract, which again is still not available to the public on the website, and there were a number of concerns with that contract, which included the capacity. The contract limits the capacity to 100 students, which appears to be below that of what Browns Mill currently serves. Questions about the service level. How does it compare to what Browns Mill currently offers? The contract only requires summer camp and aftercare, but Browns Mill also offers spring break camp and winter break camp and other things. It also says in the contract that it is required to provide quote unquote substantial youth programming. However, there's no explanation of what constitutes substantial in terms of a measurable number of hours of programming per week or month, what age groups will be served, what types of programming will be offered. So we'd be interested in learning, how does this compare to what Browns Mill currently offers? Parent and community engagement. So that contract appears to leave sole authority to the vendor to determine what programming is offered, without any requirement that they consult the public who uses the center to know what we want for our children when we send them there. And that should be in the contract. We've addressed affordability, but accessibility is another issue. And some of us have heard about the county outsourcing operations to this same vendor at Redan. And this vendor uses a membership model, which requires people to join and pay a membership fee between $60 and $135 per child, according to the website that was up there today. But that, again, was not something that was discussed with the parents. Accountability is another issue that we found in terms of making sure there are evaluation criteria in that contract. They were not in the version that I saw, to ensure that the quality and customer service meet with the expectations of the families who use it. And then the last question is on facility improvements. We know that there was a detailed examination of the facility and what the costs and repairs were that needed to be made, but the contract stipulates that the vendor will accept the recreation center in as-is condition. And aside from a couple of essential repairs that need to be made. So the question remains when any necessary enhancements will be made to the facility and how those are budgeted. So finally, the recommendation is that City Council will choose to defer that recommended contract and allow DeKalb County to manage that summer camp for now, and in the meantime that the parks should facilitate a real community engagement effort and listen to the needs of parents and families that use that community center, and not just about Browns Mill, but to be able to formulate a clear vision for all of recreation, not just these piecemeal here and there things, but for every district. There's districts that don't even have parks. So what is our vision for the entire city? Let's get parents and families and residents to sit down and be able to articulate that and operate with the transparency and public service that we expected when we formed the city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Council, we'll move to appointments for the Housing Authority members. Madam Clerk, do you have everyone?
I'm missing council member Cobble's.
She need mine too. Mine declined. I need to give another one.
Yours declined?
Yes.
You have mine now. thought I hit send in the draft. It was still in the draft form, so I hit send. But I can say the name out loud or whatever. But I did send it to you, so you have the electronic version. My apologies. Too many phones.
Can you give me the name?
First name is Diane. Last name is Robinson.
This came. You want me to give you the names?
Yes.
District 1, Jimmy Clanton has recommended Bill Bruckner. District 2, Rob Turner has recommended Marty Garrison. District 3, Jasmine Cobble has recommended Diane Robinson. District 4, George Turner has recommended Dennis Day. And District 5, Diana Dalma, you recommended Karen Scott, but you...
Madam Clerk, I need to give you an update. Nathan Alexander.
Okay, council. You've heard the name of the appointees from each district. Ms. City Attorney, do I need anything other than to take a motion? All right. Then, folks, I move that we appoint the aforementioned names with regards to the Housing Authority members for the City of Stonecrest. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second it.
All right, properly moved in second. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I believe there was a slot for the mayor to make an appointment as well.
It is, but I get to wait until the actual authority is put together. Then I get one pick.
Okay, good.
Thank you for that. All right. Any more? All in favor of the members, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council. We now have a housing authority. Congratulations. All right. Okay, we'll move to old business. We'll review the minor changes for the 2038 City of Stonecrest Comprehensive Plan. Ms. Mary Darby, how are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
Excellent, excellent.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. It's good to see you as always. Today, I am before you to review the minor changes to the Comprehensive Plan 2038. So you should have put together a brief presentation as well as a handout that shows what the minor changes are. So if you don't mind, I'd like to run through that presentation really briefly, and then we will talk about what these minor changes are. Okay?
All right.
Mary Darby, the Collaborative Firm Director of Planning and Economic Development, just for the record.
All right. Excellent, excellent.
Okay, as you are aware, on February 14th, on Valentine's Day, we actually got the approval letter by the Department of Community Affairs and Atlanta Regional Commission that the comp plan met the minimum standards and requirements as set forth by DCA and ARC. However, during the update process, we actually had a minor change to our future land use map that was recommended for review. And after careful review, we made the determination that that recommendation could be afforded as we went through prior to the adoption process. So the minor changes that we made would include the community vision, and we'll go into more depth with these really quick. The community vision, the flume map, and then various maps that actually were attached to the flume because we changed the character area, which in turn made a ripple effect to other maps that we had created in other districts. On April the 9th, the minor changes were presented before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission made a vote to advance the minor changes before the mayor and city council for review and approval to transmit or retransmit the document back before DCA and ARC to review the minor changes we have created. Okay, let's get into the minor changes. So there are actually three components of the minor changes. The first one is to the vision statement, which is very simple. We actually cited the vision statement to read, community, commerce, and culture working together to be a world-class city. And that change that was made is community, commerce, and culture working together as a world-class city. So that was the first change. And it's just, this slide just illustrates that change was made. Okay, minor change number 2 was to the FLUME, the future land use character area map, in the area of an institutional character area for a particular parcel. The parcel ID number is 16137-08006. And when this property was actually brought over through the DeKalb County plan, it was actually identified as a redevelopment commercial corridor as the land use. However, during our process, somewhere along the way, the property was downsized to institutional. And so we, the collaborative firm, believe that this minor change to the FLUME is appropriate to be consistent with what was already existing. And I know it's really small, but we didn't just change one parcel. We had to actually change 3 parcels that were adjacent to each other. So the address of the parcel is 7698 Covington Highway, but also 7660 Covington Highway. And as we go along, I'm going to identify the parcels a little better because it's really small on the map to be able to be seen. Okay. So this actual parcel here is the 7698 Covington Highway. And again, the proposal is to change this from institutional character area to city center character area, and I'll define what those are a little bit as I go along. And then the adjacent parcels are the ones that I'm identifying on the map. So for the record, if I can read this, that's the square footage. So those are the 3 parcels that we're proposing to go from institutional character area to city center. And this is just the aerial view of the property as well as a site plan view of where the property is located. This here, I was just illustrating that the existing future land use map, when the City of Stonecrest actually adopted the DeKalb County's plan, that it came in as a commercial redevelopment corridor district, those 3 parcels. And here it just shows that our recommendation for the future land use map is to identify this as commercial city center. So the downside of the property as an institutional property, it locates or identifies the properties as being like a place of worship or a school or a college. And I think that somewhere along the way, with a place of worship or a church existing on the property, they made it consistent with what was existing as opposed to what the future of the Stonecrest would be. And here in City Center, it shows that for the character area, condominiums, apartments, retail and commercial office, mixed use, things of those natures would be allowed as a permitted use in that district. So that was number 2. Change number 3. So the additional changes that were made prior to the parcel changes and the vision statement changes was that the existing Coffee Road right-of-way, which was shown on several of our maps, we did not, the collaborative firm, myself, did not take enough of the private right-of-way away from the map. So we had to go back and extend the right-of-way to identify what was private and what was public. So that has been done throughout the entire document. So the existing Coffee Road right-of-way shown as public right-of-way between CSX Railroad and 1501 Coffee Road has been removed, and all maps and figures that represented this road has been updated. Okay. The other issue along the way with the minor changes for this particular category is that the Lithonia Industrial Boulevard corridor has been identified as a truck route. So I've been back and forth on this because I had to really vet this one out. So I did get evidence from DeKalb County that proved that when it was in DeKalb County did identify this truck route, identify this Lithonia Industrial Boulevard as a truck route. So in that regards, I felt very comfortable with updating the document to reflect that as a truck route. I'm sorry, there were actually 4. So we made 2 policy changes to the document as well, and these 2 represents in the light industrial development policy number 14, which is on page 173 of the document. And it basically read that the adaptable reuse of the light industrial development, that when the property is vacant, that we would or should, as a policy, convert that property from industrial into a multifamily or a live-work district. So that is not correct, because our goal is to support industrial uses here within the city. Right now, the city has a percentage about 5% of light industrial and 9% of heavy industrial from the existing. So combined, that's only a 14%. And so with this particular, although it's a very small number of industrial uses from what we're going to make the changes from institutional to the character areas, we believe that these deletion of these policy numbers will support the city of Stonecrest and where they're trying to go for the vision, the future of the city. The second one that we deleted was the heavy industrial development policy number 14 on page 178, which reads adaptable reuse, convert obsoleted empty industrial buildings into multifamily and or live work establishments. So those 2 policies were deleted from the document. So where are we? So we started in January, and we've gone all the way through February. And as a result, originally our deadline date to meet the local qualified government status was February the 28th. However, that date has been pushed back to June 28th. And because of that, we think that this is the opportunity time to actually make the corrections that we need, send it back to DCA and ARC for re-review, and to, of course, get another approval, and then come back before the board for mayor and city council for adoption. So having said that, we do have a proposed schedule. Go through this. So here we are today at the mayor and city council meeting, of course, but we would need your vote today to retransmit the document back before DCA and ARC for re-review and approval. And we're hoping that by June 10th, we'll be able to come back before mayor and city council to adopt the document. However, because the changes are so minor, we're believing that it will not take until June 10th. So the June 10th date is a pending date. And that will conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.
All right. Council.
Any questions?
One quick question.
Okay.
What changes, if any, were made to the broadband section 3.7?
Okay. So there weren't any changes made to any of the other elements of the document except the ones that I identified. And the document that I provided here will actually list out everything that was amended to the comp plan, the draft comp plan.
Mary,
Yes, ma'am.
the parcels that we're changing from institutional character area to city center character area, are the parcels around it also already city center, or are those parcels going to be different than the ones surrounding it?
No, ma'am. Those parcels that are surrounded it are not already city center. They are, hold on a second, get my map. Urban neighborhood. It's like the orange area on your flume map. I have one right here if you need one. Okay.
Oh, the orange. Okay. And so the future land use only, the change to the zoning would only take place should something happen with the institutions that are there now, And then in the future, if that property was rezoned or reused, rather, it would have to be reused under this.
And become compatible to the land use map, correct? Correct. Yes, sir.
So if we follow your directions, this will go to ARC and anyone else who needs to review it. Meanwhile, the council still will have time to review it and make comments before our final approval.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So at this point, I'm actually requesting that a vote be taken for me to retransmit it to DCA ARC for review, and also for me to release a link to go back onto your website for others to review the final, and we'll go from there. But during that review period by DCA and ARC, you do still have time to make comment.
Good.
Yeah. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Anna Maria Hazard with Coleman Talley. Just one point on your comment. You do have time to make comments. However, if we make any other changes, we would have to send it back to DCA. And because we're on this timeline, it would be preferable. Of course, your comments will be considered, but it'll be preferable that you all approve this version of it. And then obviously once DCA approves it and the official comp plan is adopted, at any point you all can make changes to the future land use map through the regular process.
And any changes we make in the future will have to still go through this review by ARC and...
No, so this one needs to go through the review because you all are a new city. This is your first official comp plan. Once this has happened, minor changes will not have to go back through to DCA for...
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Ms. Darby, were you the only one working on this, or were you with the committee working on making these alterations and changes?
Actually, we did have a staff at the collaborative firm, and I think that I probably met with as many members here in the city and organizations and groups that would want to meet with me and had input.
So you don't see any additional in the future, any other changes in the future?
I do not. Any other questions?
All right. Very good.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Thank you.
Council, I'll take a motion for the vote. A motion for approval.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the Comprehensive Plan 2038 with the additions and the modifications.
Properly moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Just to clear up something.
Yes, sir.
And the vote we're taking now is, I heard Ms. Darby say that we need to also vote on permission to retransmit. Is this the same thing? In effect, the same vote will cover that? Okay, thanks.
All right. Good point, Councilman. All right. Any further? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Council. Thank you, Ms. Darby and Collaborative Firm. Excellent work. Excellent work. All right. Okay. Let's see where we are here. Mr. Joyner, number 2 for LMIG.
Good evening, Council.
Sure.
The reason I come before you today is for approval of the 2019 LMIG contract with Blunt Construction. If you recall, at the last meeting, we came before you with the awarding of the contract to Blunt Construction, but we did not have the contract. So we've drafted, the contract hasn't been drafted and has been approved by all parties. So I'm just bringing it for you today for approval of the contract in the amount of $2,050,719.10.
Say that number again, Mr. Joyner.
$2,050,719.10.
Okay, Council.
I got a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, for our city, I'm just a little unclear about the contract extension section of this contract. Section 5.
Wow.
So typically contracts end at the end of its term or fiscal year. But this one has a section of contract extension already written into it. Can you kind of explain a little bit of the need for this and kind of how we got to that point? Just familiar with contract extension section written in our.
Councilwoman, the contract that we used was actually sent by Mr. Hildebrandt, if he is present.
Oh,
May I ask Mr. Hildebrandt to approach? This contract was sent to our office, and this is a contract that is normally used for resurfacing projects in similar cities. Now, in regards to the contract extension, if Mr. Hildebrandt can provide any insight into that, and then I can comment as well.
So
Is it rain days?
no, and I'm sorry, I don't have the contract in front of me, but this contract is based on estimated units for the paving of all these streets. Well, those are based on staff estimates. They could be more or less. Maybe we underestimated patching, or maybe we didn't put enough striping in there. So it's really a unit price bid. But the extension would allow us, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, if both parties agree to it, we could add more streets to it. For example, if we're well under budget, we could potentially say, well, let's add 2 or 3 more streets, whatever. But it would need to be agreeable to both parties.
Yes, sir, that is correct. So the city as well as the vendor, they must come together and consent to any changes or extensions of time for the sake of this project.
Okay, so what I didn't see, and I could have overlooked it though, now that I have a different understanding. What I didn't see though was how that was addressed in, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling.
That's okay.
In the dollar amount, for lack of a better word. So for instance, let's say we would grossly underestimate, and instead of doing 18 roads, we can do 28. Let's just say that. Obviously there's a cost to that. The number changes for the total value of this contract. So I don't see any language about how we address that.
In the event that that occurred, we can always do a contract amendment, and we can do an amendment to the contract and circulate that with council as well. So that's how that will be handled in the event that the price changes due to an extension of time.
That doesn't circumvent any other competitive bid for future services. This section here alone allows us to just continue adding on to this current vendor.
If I can address that, I haven't really read the contract, but I can tell you how this would work going forward. If we see that we've got 10 streets, we got extra money, we're gonna have 10 streets. We're gonna come back to you guys about with the same level of formality as we come to you with the initial thing. We're gonna say, hey guys, looks like we could do some more streets. These folks are here, they're doing good work. We think we should add these streets. Here's what staff recommends the streets you adding. Of course, you guys would have input into that, and then at the end of the day, if you didn't want to do it, we wouldn't do it. We just leave it and go out to bid again.
Well, Councilwoman, if you look at section 2.0, term of the agreement, the contract we have a date that it is set to expire. So once this contract expires, we cannot extend the contract.
So that's the part I didn't understand. I didn't understand how we could have that part, that statement, that section,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
section 5.
Yes, ma'am.
They contradict each other.
They do, because actually yes, this actually supersedes, the term of the agreement supersedes. So in the court of law, the actual expiration date of the contract would supersede the other section. However, when I drafted this contract, I was told that the project would be completed by April 31st. Now, I'm sorry. That's August 31st, I'm sorry. And we can make corrections because I know that we're discussing this contract tonight. So corrections can be made and we can send this back out.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought that was strange that it contradicted one another.
What about over budget? What's in this to protect us in reference to, what's the process for if they become over budget with this project?
Of course, we'll do everything we can to keep the project within budget, and we'll have a CEI consultant on board as well. But my recommendation is that you would award the contract based on these unit prices with a not to exceed amount of the $2,050,000, whatever it was. And if we, for some reason, did exceed that amount, we would need to come back to Mayor and Council.
So I guess that leaves the same question. If we put a not to exceed amount, then how do we then also extend the contract or write contract extension language?
If the amount is not to exceed, then we wouldn't be able to exceed that amount. Now, in regards to if there needs to be more time for acts of God, or it's raining and it's cold and they can't actually pave, then we would be able to extend the time, but we would not be able to go over that amount.
Okay, so I guess we need to decide which one we're going to go with. That section doesn't specifically speak to just time. That contract extension is not specific to only time. It's for the procurement of goods as well.
Is that a question for somebody, or will you make an observation? I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
Oh.
She understands what I'm saying.
So that section needs to be amended.
Okay. As in, like, we can do it right now?
Subject.
Oh, subject to. Okay.
What's the amendment? We just gonna delete that section? Let's just delete that section that's causing Councilman Cobble grief and move forward. The extension section.
I think if my husband had that mind frame. That's an observation of mine. I mean, your staff may feel like that's necessary or a deal breaker for the vendor. I would imagine that if I was a vendor, I would like to discuss that as that's potential income for me. But like I said, we just need to make it so it's not contradicting the term section. So whatever that looks like, smart people.
Yes, sir. So we can amend the section to delete the portions that, yes, sir, to allow this project to proceed.
Okay. Let's get moving.
Yeah, because this, I think part of our thing is this is not an estimated amount from the vendor. They've actually bid this amount for the project, right?
Right.
Correct. So they're saying for us to pave these 18 streets and for this 1 mile of Turner Hill Road, the city will pay them an amount of $2,050,719.10.
So, Council, we have a hard dollar amount, and we have a hard stop date. And anything else inconsistent with that is either superseded or is going to be removed from the contract. So
we just take everything out that contradicts that. Okay. So, I mean, it'd been nice to have that done before now.
Well, they wouldn't know what your comments are before tonight,
No,
Councilwoman.
But the section itself is contradicting the other section, is all I'm saying. So.
See, Mayor, the staff, will continue to grow and mature, and we'll learn to anticipate these type things before they happen. I've never been more serious in my life.
Well, it actually helps to read the contract as well.
Absolutely.
It was a very powerful point that you made that you had not read the contract. So, I mean, it's just a few reviews of it might help with that.
I'm sure the city's paid good money for some people smarter than me to read it more than once.
But yet here I am.
So, we find ourselves in a place that I think we can move forward.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. I like it a lot. So, having said that, further, council. Then I move that we approve the contract for Blunt Construction based on the changes that have been mentioned so far. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Properly moved and second. Any further discussion?
Those changes, do they need to be outlined again for the record?
I don't know how complicated can it be when they cut this, and that's it. But you know,
they're just
you know,
moving. I want to hear it again.
I'll refer
Yes,
to
sir, and I can provide council with a red line version so you can see what was.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
All right.
But was the motion proper though, George?
Don't forget to change it.
I mean, Councilman. But was the motion proper?
Motion.
Okay. All right.
All right.
But you know, you made a good point about the change of the date to August.
Oh.
Yeah, she's gonna.
Yeah, she mentioned it.
I think that was contained in the mayor's motion.
Yes, sir. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you, council. Mr. Joyner, I see you're still standing there. So number 3 belongs to you also. The approval and award of CEI services contract for 2019 LMIG resurfacing
I
project.
come before you to approve and award the CEI services contract. CEI standing for Construction, Engineering, and Inspections Services that will be provided by Southeastern Engineering Incorporated for the purpose of for inspecting the 2019 LMIG resurfacing project.
Okay, council?
Oh, excuse me, in the amount of $62,400.
Say the number again, sir.
Yeah, $62,400. And this was a result of the RFP that went out for these services that was vetted by the SPLOST Citizen Oversight Advisory Committee, and they're the ones that helped us determine the winner of the bid.
Okay. Council, you have the floor.
Who did you say helped you to determine the winner of the bid?
The SPLOST Citizen Oversight Advisory Committee.
Okay.
In the packet, I don't know if maybe I'm not looking at it correctly, but it looks like I only see the last page of the contract. Is the whole thing in it?
I'm looking through the packet. It begins with the first page is Professional Engineering and Design Services Agreement, and it's numerous pages here. It starts on page 20 of your packet. The first set is the contract itself. And then there's an Exhibit A page, Exhibit B. Then there's the risk management requirements from the vendor.
Right. If you look at the last page, it seems that it ends. It says page 4, and then it ends with the word "this." So it seems like there's another page there.
And then we have their basically their proposal begins on page 35, which tells about the company, the past experience, the people that will be working on it. They give us the names of their project manager and their construction inspector. And then the lump sum amount to it says page 4. And that has the amount of their lump sum bid.
Right. So if you look at page 4, the very last word, it says "this," and then it ends.
Oh, okay.
So is there another page?
I believe that there may be some additional pages that were part. This came out of their bid packet, and so I included this page because it had the amount of their bid.
So what do you have something after page 4?
No. That concludes what was included in the packet itself.
Okay.
And once again, the purpose of including that page was to include the lump sum amount of their bid. For the
Right. I was looking for that in the compensation section, which just refers to Exhibit A, but it looked like Exhibit A was blank.
Yeah, the exhibits that were associated with this was the bid packet that includes the background information about the company, the gentlemen that are going to be working on the project, their background, as well as the specifications.
Okay, and one quick question. So
Right.
you said the SPOSH committee is vetting the proposals?
Yeah, under
They're
the
performing that function, the SPOSH committee?
the SPLOS Citizen Oversight Advisory Committee was this actually the packet was brought before them. Actually, our city engineer is the one that ran the program.
Okay, but the
And
committee actually are vetting these proposals?
no.
Because that's what you said. So can you clarify
Excuse me,
for
let
me?
clarify. Excuse me. The city engineer vetted the proposals and brought the winning proposal to the SPLOS Citizen Oversight Advisory Committee.
Hey, just checking. It's just kind of, I've never heard of that process where this committee is vetting proposals for a municipality.
Okay, any further?
Councilwoman, are we
Councilwoman?
clear?
So how many RFPs did we have?
We received 3 proposals.
Okay. So we don't have a city manager, this is for you. Good example of having a contracts and procedural manual so we can be consistent. And I have to keep expressing to you my level of discomfort without having I have nothing to go to say we're doing steps 1 through 10. So just the level of discomfort, just so you can document it.
Okay, anyone else? All right, folks. I will take a motion for the approval award of CEI services contract.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So move. Motion to approve.
All right, motion to approve for the award of the CEI services contract. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion?
Just one quick question. This
Yes, ma'am.
service is just for the LMEG.
Yes, this is only for the LMIG, for the 2019 LMIG streets. So this is only for the 18 streets and Turner Hill Road full depth reclamation project.
So let's play devil's advocate for just a quick second and say that we underestimated, so we have some more dollars to do some more streets. Will we then have to come back and extend, or do an amendment to this contract to extend for the additional streets?
Yeah, more than likely, we would have to come back and do that as well, because this estimate is just for the inspection.
18 streets?
Those, yeah,
Okay.
for those specified.
All right, any further? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Joyner. And we have the second reading of 4, 5, and 6. Madam Attorney?
The first ordinance, Chapter 5, entitled Animal Control. An ordinance of the City of Stonecrest, Georgia, adopting Chapter 5, entitled Animal Control of the City Code. This ordinance is to provide a process of animal control, delineation of registration requirements, and regulation of dangerous animals. Does council have any questions?
All right, counsel.
I do. I mean, if someone else want to go first, that's fine.
Floor is yours.
I'm still looking for my notes. Okay. There were some revisions made to the DeKalb County Animal Ordinance.
Yes,
Just want to
ma'am.
make sure that the ordinance that we're voting on includes all of those revisions. I'm looking for the section, I think it was section 16-304 on animal vocalization. Let's see, chapter 5, the ordinance covering barking dog complaints, section 16-303. If they're barking between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., is that included in the ordinance?
Yes, ma'am. So this ordinance actually reflects all the current changes, the current DeKalb County Code. Now, the city is also able to, after we adopt this, you can amend at a later date if you would like to make any additional changes, changes specific to the city of Stonecrest.
What page is it on?
1 second.
And just so you know, the reason I'm asking, I've gotten a lot of complaints about the barking dogs in the middle of the night. And one of them came from me. Attorney Denmark, she can just add it if it's not in there. We can just ask that it's added.
Councilwoman, I believe we just having a difficult time finding the specific provision you're referencing. However,
It's not that, I just wanted to have it added. If she don't see it in there, that's fine.
okay, well,
Okay.
whatever, if to the extent there's anything lacking from the most recent version of the DeKalb County ordinance, we can approve subject to adding those
Sure.
provisions.
Sure, I know you can. I'll shoot you an email.
There's just one quick question. DeKalb County uses a third-party vendor for licensing of animals. Would that transfer as well, or must we contract with our own person, a third-party vendor to license?
I don't believe that the contract is going to transfer as a consequence of us passing an ordinance, but we would have to contract with a vendor, that particular vendor or a different vendor ourselves.
Okay. And that is something that we're going to have to address right away as it relates to this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, folks, any further questions? Madam Minister or Attorney, since this is our second read, do we move for approval?
Yes, approval subject to the changes that Councilwoman Adoma mentioned.
All right.
Thank you, Attorney Denmark.
Councilwoman, I'll take your motion.
I'm just making a motion that we incorporate all the revisions and modifications, the recent revisions and modification from DeKalb County, and incorporate them into the City of Stonecrest Animal Ordinance.
All right, properly moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Multiple seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Second reading passes for Chapter 5. Chapter 17.
Chapter 17, an ordinance of the City of Stonecrest, Georgia, adopting Chapter 17 entitled Motor Vehicle Regulations of the City Code. This ordinance provides for regulation and administration of motor vehicles in the City of Stonecrest.
All right, Council, you have the floor.
And Council, for all of these ordinances, it'll be the exact same thing. To the extent there are any recent updates to the DeKalb County ordinance, we will incorporate those.
All right. Do I have any changes, council? In additions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion for approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
move for approval of Chapter 17, motor vehicles.
All right, properly moved
Second.
and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Number 6, second reading for the ordinance, chapter 23.
Yes,
Streets and
sir.
Sidewalks.
An ordinance of the City of Stonecrest, Georgia, adopting Chapter 23 entitled Streets and Sidewalks of the City Code. This ordinance is to provide a standard for street regulations and usage by the City of Stonecrest.
Council, you have the floor.
I don't understand this ordinance. What are we voting on, Attorney Dillon?
So this ordinance actually allows you to rename certain streets and also allows you to basically do traffic studies, decide where you would like to place traffic signals and things of that nature to regulate the flow of traffic.
Okay, so right now we don't have the authority to rename streets? Just asking. Okay. Okay.
As of right now, you do not, but once you adopt this ordinance,
Okay,
you will
I'm
be
ready.
able to do so.
I'm ready.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I got a great name.
All right. Any further, council? I'll take a motion for approval.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion that we accept the second reading of the ordinance to create Chapter 23, Streets and Sidewalks.
Thank you, sir.
Second it.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So passes. Thank you, council. All right, we're moving to new business. I'm sorry. Huh?
Expecting the attorney to.
Just for clarity, on the motion was to accept the reading.
Second reading.
The second reading, should the motion be to approve?
Approve.
Or pass?
Approve the ordinance.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're correct, Councilman.
Did you say accept or approve?
That's what I said.
I thought you said approve.
He said accept the second reading.
Oh, to approve the ordinance
approve it.
for the second reading. I'm sorry. I did say that. Approve the ordinance to create.
I thought you said that also.
You remember, we have to consult with the record.
You wrote to approve.
We'll fix it.
Okay.
All right.
What did you say, Judy?
I said we'll fix it.
Well,
Right, we're not sure. It's good. It's
yeah,
good.
you said approve? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll approve it.
Good deal. Good deal. All right. Okay. New business, 2019 Community Block Development Grant application. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a whole lot to tell you. Unfortunately, I put a blank copy of an application in the packet so you guys could see it. Matt, what's Matt's last name? Yeah, Matt Hampton is going to meet with us tomorrow. He's supposed to have the application substantively completed. I did engage his services for a nominal fee, and so what I'm hoping for tonight is you guys. I don't see any requirement to submit a resolution. I didn't see any requirement, so I just would ask you guys to vote to support the application. And as soon as I have a draft of it, I will circulate that amongst you guys so you can see it. And you ask if you have any questions or concerns, you can certainly raise those with me. Of course, just submitting the application is not going to obligate you to anything. I mean, if we are awarded funds, and at that time you'll be asked to, vote to accept that, or or not. So, the real decision making will be coming later. But just ask for your blessing on the application, and I'll try to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Council, you have the floor.
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, folks, but I can hear you from up here, whoever this is. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if it was this application or another one at the last meeting. Was there a deadline for getting this done?
Yes, sir. It's right on the front page, April 30th at 1 p.m.
April 30th.
Yes, sir. Well, yeah, they want to make sure you don't miss that.
Okay.
The county, that is.
Got it.
Right. That's it.
I'm in
Okay.
favor of it.
All right, Mr. Jackson. Then I move that we give Mr. Jackson approval to move forward with finishing the application so that we can approve and review for the 2019 Community Development Block Grant
I
application.
second it.
Properly moved in second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Mr. Jackson?
Thank you, guys.
You're the man.
Thank you.
Number 2, Parks and Rec, IGA, Ms. Joyner.
Good evening again. In your packet was is the IGA for the Parks and Recreation Department, and coming before you today to get your approval of this IGA so that we can move forward with DeKalb County for the transfer of the parks. The purpose of this agreement is to provide the terms by which the county shall transfer the park property as herein defined to the city. The county shall provide services and activities related to recreation, aquatic, and summer programs and maintaining and operating parks, playgrounds, pools, athletic fields, golf courses, and recreation centers within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city in a manner provided by the DeKalb County Department of Parks and Recreation and Cultural Affairs, and the county will transfer the responsibility of providing those park services to the city. The terms of this agreement begin on May 1st of this year, and this terminates on January 1st of 2020. And during this time, we will actually use this amount of time this year to actually facilitate the transfer of the parks. Also included in here in Article 5 of the 5.1, which is the services, includes the dates which we intend to transfer. The parks will be transferred from the county to the city. There has been some discussion around changing some of these dates. The county is not comfortable with moving the dates on this May 1st date, and so they've requested that we move all of the May 1st dates to June 3rd to be in line with the other parks that we want to. Basically, they want to move all the parks on June 3rd instead of May 1st, mainly because of the fact that they will not be approving this IGA before that time. So this will just give them time to facilitate that. The other changes, the other differences in times, so that would be Chestnut Lakes Park, Everett Park, Panola Shoals Path Trailhead, the Browns Mill Recreation Center, the Southeast Athletic Complex, the Browns Mill Sports Fields, Farrington Park, Salem Park, and Gregory Mosley Park. Those will all be on June 3rd. The Browns Mill Aquatic Center. The county has requested to maintain operation of the aquatic center through the summer, and so they wanted to transfer that over on September 30th of 2019. So they'll operate the pool and the water, basically the water park throughout the summer, and then at the end of the summer, the city will then take control of that. And the Arabia Mountain Nature Preserve, that's the big hairy gorilla in the room. And so we've decided, along with the county, is to push off the discussion on the transfer of that park until later on, to a later date. And we just want to get the other parks, which are going to be a lot easier to move. The parks that we've already begun to do the environmental studies and do the title searches on those are just about complete. And so we'll be able to move those by this June 3rd date. After we've done with the transfer, then we'll move and begin discussions on the Arabia Mountain Nature Preserve, what that will look like going forward. So those are the substantive changes, the only changes that we have at this time, that we have at this point. And so I think, I'm not sure if we're at a point where we can prove this with the changes, or if we need to.
Hi, Honorary Hazard. So at this point, we have the changes would be to transfer the park services June 3rd and to transfer the parks June 3rd, other than the aquatic center, which would be September 30th, and then Arabia Mountain, which would be decided upon later. And so what we're asking for today is approval of the IGA in a form substantially similar to the one that was presented to you today with those changes. And then obviously we're going to try to push it forward with DeKalb County and get the county commissions to approve as well. If there are any further substantial changes, then we will come back before you and review those with you and ask for approval for that.
All right, Council, you have the floor. Yes, ma'am.
There's a section in here that, well, I have two questions about some context that's in it, and then I have a question about the park services contract to follow. First question about the context of the IGA is there's a section that speaks to residents who are in unincorporated DeKalb, would still be able to use the park and its services, I guess so long as they are contributing to the tax. Just out of curiosity, how would we tax non-city residents for just a specific a la carte service?
So what that section is saying, basically, that this is a public park and it will remain a public park. We're not just going to close off the park only to citizens of Stonecrest, but that those who live in unincorporated DeKalb County would also be able to use the park.
Then the other section I had a question about was, we do mention that the city agrees to take over the park services no later than January 1st, 2020. So one, would you move that date being as you're moving the acquisition date? And then, so I'll let you answer that one first.
Yeah, so the acquisition dates are, for majority of the parks, would be June 3rd, or when the environmental and title work is completed, whichever is last. And then that provision you're speaking to basically says that before this IGA is expired on January 1st, 2020, all the parks should be purchased and transferred over to Stonecrest. And then obviously if there's any amendments to the IGA which extends out the date, then that sort of final acquisition date would also be extended out.
Okay. So, and I may be jumping the conversation, and if I am, I can hold this question till after the other council members have asked. But now tell me how this is going to affect the proposal for the park services contract.
So this sort of works in conjunction. What this IGA is saying is that these are parks that are now DeKalb County parks. Stonecrest is going to take over the parks, meaning we're going to own them, and also Stonecrest is going to take over the park services. Because through this IGA, Stonecrest will take over the park services, the parks director is entering into contracts to make sure that we can provide those park services by having the proper personnel there. So they work together, but they're sort of different. This IGA is between Stonecrest and DeKalb County.
Right.
The park services contract is between Stonecrest and those that will be providing the park services.
Right. So I guess what I was trying to ask was, if we are not acquiring the parks until June 3rd and its service and taking over its services until June 3rd, the contractor that would provide that service would obviously need to come in round about the same time, if not before. So how does that now affect the service that specific service out of Browns Mill Park to be provided?
So we've had that discussion with DeKalb County, specifically with Zach Williams, and also with Chuck Ellis, the director of Parks and Recreation for DeKalb County. So we'll be entering into a separate agreement, a memorandum of understanding with the county to enable us to go in a few weeks early. The plan is to go in at least by May 20th to begin the setup and preparing for summer camp. So that summer camp will then be able to begin on June.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So is our agreement that we purchase them all or none?
Excuse me?
We purchase all or none? Is that the arrangement?
Right now we're purchasing everything except for Arabian Mountain.
So I'm saying, but is it possible just to accept 3 and maybe reject 4? What is DeKalb County looking at us doing? Accepting all of them? And if we don't accept all of them, then the contract is null and void?
DeKalb County is planning us taking all of the park.
Okay. I think you might have answered it, but I don't think you did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me ask that question again. Okay, we have, 11 parks on here. Let's say we only wanted 4. What happens to the other 7?
So the IGA is a contract between Stonecrest and DeKalb, as I said before, and currently What the IGA says is that Stonecrest will purchase all of the parks.
That's it.
If Stonecrest decides not to purchase all of the parks, then we have breached the IGA.
That's it. That's the answer. Thank you.
Okay, quick question. You said breach the IGA. Has this been approved or signed off by DeKalb County?
No, I'm assuming to answer his question, I was assuming that we were in the contract already. It's been executed by the city and the county. Once the contract is executed, we have to follow the terms of the contract, and the terms of the contract say that we're going to buy all of the parks other than Arabia Mountain, which will be decided later.
Okay, so to his question, I think he was asking, like, we have a complete list here, and I guess maybe my question would be, if we bought 6 of them and maybe left off 3, could we do that now, or you're saying if we...
I'm saying if you don't want to buy all of these parks, then that needs to be in the IGA. Because currently what's in the IGA is that we're going to purchase all of the parks. If the intention is not to purchase all of the parks, then they need to come out of the IGA.
So what I'm trying to do is figure out a way to support this document, but to support it taking into consideration the community concerns. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to pass this in a modified format, which I do want to support the parks, but there were some valid concerns that were brought to the council's attention, and I'm not sure if the rest of the council want to address that, but those are the things that I would want to have a few answers to.
Sure. So once the contract is executed, then we're bound to the terms of the contract. So if you want to modify it, then now is the time. And then once you all can approve those modified terms, DeKalb County can approve those modified terms, and then we're bound to the terms. Once the terms are approved, we can't change them unless we renegotiate with DeKalb County and come back here for reapproval and then get the county to approve it again.
Okay, so my question now is for the city manager. Mr. Jackson, I'm trying to figure out a way to support this and need your help.
Okay, well, I can help you with that, I promise you. Having said that, this is the first I've heard of any discussion of us not buying all the parks except Arabia Mountain. I mean, that's the way I've been sort of operating under the assumption that that was the will of the people. You know, we're going to buy them all. Arabia Mountain's an issue that's going to have to be decided at a later date. Now, if that's not the way everybody feels, or then you know, we're going to have to stop and, you know, punt. But I'm just going to tell you, you know, anybody, you know, drawing up a contract is a lot easier than getting folks to execute it sometimes. And we need to get DeKalb to execute an agreement with us so we can provide summer camp this year. You know, I heard the concerns from the audience. I've been hearing the concerns from different corridors or different hallways. And, you know, and I'm not saying it's a perfect agreement by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the one we've been working with all this time, and you know, it was distributed to everybody about 2 weeks ago, and so if you got a problem with those things, we need to know, because honestly, if you guys approve it tonight, DeKalb's already told a representative of DeKalb County has communicated to Ples that the commissioners are not even going to entertain this item on their agenda for the 23rd, for tomorrow. So now we're into May for them to, you know, possibly approve it. And I can just tell you, if we're still talking about it and we're not holding an agreement out here saying you guys need to sign this, well then I don't know how we're going to get summer camp done.
Okay, well, I think my question was, one of the concerns was, you know, we're dealing with children, and I didn't think of this, and I'm so happy that, you know, some of the people in the city thought of it, but some of the concerns that I heard, and one of them that remains with me, is that no parental notification. The parents haven't had the opportunity to, you know, I'm a parent myself and a grandparent, and so I'm just thinking, I never even thought of that, but that's a good point, that the parents have not been notified, and neither have the individuals who frequent that park. So just trying to find a way for the community engagement piece. And I'm trying to find a way that maybe Julian, you or Ples or Sean can recommend how we can move this along and take into consideration the concerns. And I think what I heard, if we approve it like it is, the contract would be breached if we changed it later. So it would be something that perhaps we might have to take just 2 minutes tonight and discuss
So-
some
so
of those.
I'm gonna,
Can I please finish, Mr. Mayor? I'm almost done. Just 30 more seconds, I'm done. If we can just take just a few minutes and address the parental notification concern, so that I feel like we're gonna be doing the right thing for the parents and the children.
So in other words, you're saying communicate to the community that we're going to be providing summer camp.
No, the concern from, I think it was, I don't see her out there anymore, but her concern was that the parents have not, in other words, we're making all these changes to Browns Mill Recreational Park. And what she was saying is that the parents have not been notified. Now, I'm a parent and a grandmother. I would want to know that. And so that's, to me, that's worthy of modifying this. I'm not saying let's hold it up. If we need to move it forward, let's just make a modification with that Browns Mill Recreation.
Can I make one note here, Mr. Mayor?
You have the floor, Mr. Joyner.
The one concern I have is that the negotiations concerning this agreement here has been going on with DeKalb County. And so DeKalb County has planned on Stonecrest taking over the summer camp for this summer. That's why the date for the transfer is June 3rd. That's the date that we've negotiated with DeKalb County to enter into the recreation center. So if we're going to change that, then we need to go back to DeKalb County pretty quickly and let them know that we're not going to be doing.
Let me.
Okay, I'm going to be recognized now. Thank you, sir. Then I'll come to you, Mr. Turner.
Thank you.
This is why we set up committees. This is why we work around the clock. This is why we have opportunities for people to speak and voice their concerns, and we don't take these instances lightly. We have been working on this a year. This is no surprise to anyone that we're taking over these services. There's no surprise to anyone that we're taking over these parks. I'm going to have order because I respect you all, and I need for you all to do the same. And if we're going to have, as we say, and should, parental involvement, there's a certain application that we have to work with regards to partnering with the county, with regards to working with City Council and us here on the dais to make sure that we go through these things properly. Because, you know, at this point, we know exactly where we're going with regards to the park system. Folks have sat on these committees from a citizen standpoint, from an employee standpoint, from a staff standpoint from there. So we're now at a point where we have to approve moving forward, or we don't have a document to give to DeKalb County to move forward on their end. So chopping it up with 2 parks here, 3 parks there, we already have the money in the bank to do exactly what we said we were going to do. And I'll yield the floor to you, Councilman, and we can go from there.
Just to say that this is where we feel we would come to, and that is the last minute to make a decision, or we're going to lose it. And yeah, we did establish a committee to try to get the word to everybody as to what the intentions of the city is in regards to this particular matter. And time is running out. And the question I have right now is, if we are not ready to take on Browns Mill, is DeKalb County in a position to continue the summer program?
Every indication I've received from from DeKalb County Department of Parks and Recreation is that they are planning on Stonecrest conducting the summer camp summer.
But again, there were some dates that allowed us to take over some of the parks at the end, some services at the end of the summer. And I know you mentioned that for the aquatic and some of the others.
Right,
and
right.
What I'm saying is that if there's an option to, we put that in as an option to wait until the summer is over, is DeKalb County going to still be in a position to service Browns Mill recreation facility.
Yeah, once again, Councilman, the DeKalb County wanted and has made provisions to operate the aquatic center this summer. They did not make any provisions to operate the Browns Mill Recreation Center this summer.
So you're saying they've already decommissioned the staff for the summer and are in no position to continue it? Or is that something that can still be negotiated?
We can always go back and speak with them some more about this and, say that we're not ready to go just yet, but,
Just that one adjustment.
Yes, yeah, I understand. And we've had this conversation with them and they were pretty steadfast that they wanted, that this was, the aquatic center was the piece that they wanted to keep throughout the summer, and they would allow Stonecrest to come in early and operate the summer camp.
I see the value in being ready with our agreement, but since they're not going to be able to address it on tomorrow, that does buy a little, just a little, and time is really of the essence here, if nothing else, because people have got to make, well, they're overdue for having made decisions on what has to happen for the summer.
And believe me, I understand. We are, we're actually will do whatever the council decides this evening. And if the decision is to not go at the Browns Mill Recreation Center, we'll get back with them tomorrow morning and see what we can do to get that done. But just to let you know, they were planning on Stonecrest taking over the Browns Mill Recreation Center this summer.
So I want to hear from Sean DePalmer. Mr. DePalmer.
Yes, sir.
You have been working as close with anyone on this. You've been leading it. You've been with staff. You've been with everybody that's in this part of it. So I have been with this from the executive side, and I know where DeKalb County's heart is, and that is not only their heart, their intention is for us to quite frankly, do the services that we are going to get the millage rate for and paid for. But I want you to express to the council where we are with this. And I know you have a presentation also, but no one knows more about this than you do.
Well, I want to stress the urgency because time, respectively, Councilman Turner is not on our side. The window is extremely tight. It's actually beyond starting on June 3rd. We're trying to squeeze it into June 3rd. It's actually realistically June 10th for summer camp. So we're working very diligent to try and squeeze it in there. Today is the day. The decision has to be made because there's other things that come into line. Now, DeKalb County did express to us when we were in negotiations, several months, several meetings, that they did not hire staff. They did not go out to prepare for summer camp. They're under the impression, and their notion is that Stonecrest will be running summer camp at a Browns Mill Park.
I mean, I hear you, but I'm baffled that they could have such an impression when we really didn't have the agreement. So.
Correct. In the midst of preparing for something, you have to prepare as if you're going to have agreement because you're moving forward into that. That's one of our key charter. On our city charter, a key thing is recreation. That's one of our pillars. So we're going to provide that service. So if you watch, it all unfolds. It's not something that you make a decision today and then you move forward. Months ago, we were planning this to get this document so that we can line up services. So we can line up landscaping, janitorial services. All these have to unfold. So you don't do that as soon as you get an IGA today and then you start planning. You plan ahead of time and then you line them all up. Now, because we're dealing with another agency, we have to also massage that time frame out constantly with them, and that's where we are. We have been doing that, working diligently. I can name off several meetings that Mr. Joyner and I sat there and had discussions where the dates were set at one point, but then we had to readjust to them, and then we came back with a renegotiation. So this was a process over several months. It is not just today.
I understand all of that, but what I'm saying is that it proceeded as if it was going to happen. And I believe in positive thinking, but there was also the possibility that it would not happen. So apparently no contingency was made for the possibility that it would not happen.
Okay. And I see your point of what you're saying. We, on the side of Stonecrest, that has a charter to take over parks, we were preparing to do what our task is and execute that task. Now, I can't speak on DeKalb County's side and what they prepared or did not prepare for. I do know that exactly what Mr. Joyner just said, that when we finished all these negotiations, which were very fluent, even up to within this same day, DeKalb County is prepared and stated that they will be taking over aquatic services. And they made indication that they are under the notion that City of Stonecrest will take over Browns Mill with the summer camp services and youth services.
And that would have to be agreed to, or not agreed to.
Correct, yes, sir.
So there was no provision made for the not agreeing to. So I'm just saying, I understand the complexity of putting something together when you're doing part here and part there. And if you're going to transfer the funds, you're transferring part funds and leaving part funds. It can be very, very complicated. It's easier to go all the way one way or all the way the other. But this does leave the community at this bridge where school is ending in a couple of weeks. And decision should have been made already. And they're forced to make one decision based on what we do.
Correct. I do want to just stress to you that Mr. Harris, when he was here, Mr. Joyner, myself, we worked diligently over the last couple of months to ensure that this could have occurred prior. But again, we're working with another agency, and we had to go back and forth in negotiation. But we were prepared and working diligently to bring this to you much more earlier than where we are today.
What about
And I do too. I would like to chime in at some point too. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. So between the two, Stonecrest and DeKalb County, and all the negotiations that's taken place, and for DeKalb County to cease services and for us to pick up services, between the two of us, nobody reached out to the community, not one time. None of your staff either.
Ma'am, Councilwoman Cobble, what we did is keep in mind that we cannot give out, I cannot disseminate information if I don't have it. So what we did is we did reach out to as many people as possible through DeKalb County, asking them to direct the contacts to us so we can generate names and keep track of people. We even called back after a 2-week period to say, hey, we don't have any additional information, but we know that you have a child that is ready for summer camp. As we get closer, as we finalize something, we will communicate with you. That is where we were. We could not go out. Coca-Cola doesn't go into a Pepsi company and start to direct.
Well, yeah, and I understand that.
We can't go out into DeKalb County now.
I totally get what you're saying. What's difficult for us, and not only are we pinning the parents to one decision, you're also pinning us, not only to the IGA, but to your proposed vendor. So we don't even have time to vet your vendor, nor do the parents have time to vet the vendor, meet the staff. I mean, we haven't given time to either party, the dais or the parents. So now I'm in a position to make a decision that affects other people without a shadow of a doubt, and I'm pinned to one decision. So let's, for instance, say that we move the IGA. What if I don't like your vendor? Then what do we do? If we don't agree to that, then where are we? And I'm going to step away for a second because this is insane. This is crazy. How can I walk away and sleep tonight with a decision like this on my plate? School gets out in 3 weeks. There's no law that says Stonecrest can only buy the park by these dates for this price. If we're not there yet, why are we forcing the parents and the council to be in this position, make a decision? I'm going to have to like your vendor because I have no time. I'm going to have to like your IGA because I have no time. The parents will have to like our decision because they have no time. And I'm not fussing at you, I'm fussing at the circumstance. This is tough. And it's like, today, make a decision, go home. That's not even fair for us. I just want to get that off. Go ahead. I'm gonna step away so I can come down.
Councilman,
It's also 9
Councilwoman
o'clock. I
Cabo,
ain't no dinner.
as an individual that serves the community.
You gonna wait for the answer?
As a profession,
I didn't really run the question.
in the profession to serve the community, I understand your frustration. I understand the parents' frustration. I'm a parent myself. That being said, keep in mind that your staff, this city staff, worked diligently for the last several months. And if it was completely in our power, we would have been at a different place earlier on. That's not where we are.
Right. So why are we forcing it now? Why are you forcing it today?
Oh,
If it's taken us a year to get this far, imagine how long it may take the county. Who's to say that they're going to agree with our IGA, with our millage separation, right? I don't even know what the millage difference is between taking on a millage in June and taking on a millage in September. What if, I mean, there's a whole lot of what ifs that obviously I don't know all the answers to. I don't even have all the questions. But if the control is so far from our hands, why is today the day?
Well, what I would like to say to today being the day is because, again, as staff, we can't wait until June to say that's the day and then start preparing. We need to prepare now. We need to have an MOU in place now. We need to have staff ready now. In fact,
but you don't have to take the services on June 3rd. You don't. We can keep preparing so that it's not a rush.
okay.
We
And
don't
as
have to do it by, well, first of all, it was May 1st. We didn't find out about June 3rd till 20 minutes ago. So, I mean, that would have been helpful. But
yes, ma'am. And as Mr. Journer said, at the will of the council, if that is the will of the council, then we definitely can do what the will of the council is. And if that is the will of the council, we would go and execute that task that is placed upon in our stewardship.
I'm going to make a comment, then I'll pass to Mike to Councilman Clanton. Folks, make no doubt about this. We have been diligent on every end of all of this. I'm really going to ask for some respect. I really am. I'm really going to ask for some respect because that's the way I treat you all. I treat you with respect. And we have worked around the clock on this. This didn't just come up. All due respect to Councilwoman Cobble. If she was still here, if she walked back in, I'd tell her the same thing. She has a full-time job. This is our full-time job. This is what we do. So having said that, when those parents that are sitting out here, like myself, I'm a parent. My kids came up through the Browns Mill system. Came up through the everything that we have here today. But make no doubt about it, DeKalb County will leave us in the lurch if we don't do what we said that we were going to do. They will leave us empty, and your kids won't have anywhere to go. That's what we are trying to desperately avoid. So why we're here today is that we have the parks that we have been looking at. We have the parks that we have been evaluating. We have the parks that we have been meeting with their senior management from Michael Thurman on down. None of this is a secret. So I appreciate the councilwoman's passion with regards to this, but she doesn't work every day here like we do. This is what we do every day, all day long. And this is where we are with this. Now we're to a point where we have to vote on the parks. And then we even separate it with the county with regards to Browns Mill Aquatic Center. And then we separate it with regards to Arabia Mountain. Now, if this was all half cop done and rushed in that particular thing, none of these instances would have occurred. But these are the things that have occurred. So, folks, what we're trying to say to you, and of course, council, we can't get to a certain point where they're expecting a document from us. We've already been working on this for a year and planning to make this happen, and then we have no document, we have no contract on our end to give to them so that they can vote on it at the commission meeting. Because you're going to be even more upset if June 3rd comes around and then we can't service you at all. That we cannot allow to happen. We cannot allow that to happen. So, council, as I sit today, and then I'll pass this to Councilman Clanton, is that this is why we're voting on this today. This is not a matter by which it just sprung up on us. We've been working on this the entire time. Councilman Clanton.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and my fellow council members, on this side, we know for a fact, now if there are people here that ran for office for the city of Stonecrest, if you ran for office or if you got elected, one thing you do know is that one of the 3 services that we are required to take on is parks and recs. We don't get to select whether or not we're going to do that, and I appreciate it. But I just want to stick with the facts, and I want to try to take some of the emotion out of the situation because we don't. I understand when you first hear something and nobody told you that thing before, you're going to be upset, and you may not even seek the full understanding of what's going on. So in an attempt sometime to explain fully what's going on, we have a tendency to take the issues off the table and replace the issues with faces. But the issues still remain and they have to be solved. The issue here is simple. To say that we have not been engaged in the parks is just reckless for any council member to say that, simply because not only did we know that it's part of our charter, number one. Number two, we passed a budget for this last year to purchase not just Browns Mill, but all of the parks. We passed that budget as a group. That's number two. Number three, we have convened a committee that myself and Councilman Turner is on, that committee along with citizens from the city of Stonecrest, to even look at what parks we should and should not attack. So this is not the first time this discussion came up. In that committee, we voted within the committee, have not turned that information over to council, but we voted within the committee to take on every park except for Arabia Mountain. So there has been plenty of thought. Number four, even more critical, and you got to think about this if you're a citizen, we have hired staff for Parks and Recs. We have a Parks and Recs manager. We have, as far as I know, at least 2 additional employees for Parks and Recs. We didn't hire them to look at Parks and Recs. We hired them to operate in that role. Now, what we can do, or what we should look at, is not a this or that situation. Can we have this or that? What if we can have this and that? What I'm hearing is the parents are upset because of lack of notification. There's a issue of purchase versus a issue of service, providing service. I think Stonecrest can provide better service in DeKalb County. That's a personal opinion, but here's one thing that I hope our Parks Committee and our council members can make certain that our parks do is to, from this point, hearing what people have said in regards to these parks, we can purchase the park and we can still look at the issues that you perceive, the issues that we did not address earlier. We can do that now. It's not too late. We don't have to set the parks aside because of a minor issue. I am surprised that issue hadn't been looked at differently, that we have gotten to a point where we now want to derail our task of bringing on the parks. So why don't we just do this? Why don't we step back from the out of the batter's box for a minute and look at addressing the issues that our community feel that they need to be a part of, and that is not a big deal. But in the meantime, can we not go ahead and purchase the park with the promise and with some policy in place that say we will directly address the issues of our constituents, because that is the whole point, is that we are in the community. We should be able to serve you better than the county can, not because the county is necessarily bad, but the county is big. We're small. We should be able to direct our efforts to the parents in the Brown Mills area. It shouldn't be a delay in the vote to deal with our parents. And Mr. Mayor, I appreciate your judgment, but that is where I'm standing right now as far as the Parks and Recs go. Thank you, guys.
I have one more.
I have a question too.
Councilman Turner and Odoma.
We are proposing a memorandum of understanding for a vendor that has been vetted, I take it, And I'm just wondering if, since we technically will not be running it until that vendor completes what they are being brought in to do in September, then we will run it. Is that what I'm hearing? Possibly, possible extension with that same vendor. So we still won't be running it. We'll have a vendor running it. Is it a possibility that that could be delayed through the summer before that vendor takes over and just let it default to the cab to continue it? Although I know you've said that the cab doesn't plan on running it. I'm just trying not to upset what is in place.
Just to clarify the question, Councilman Turner, you're saying don't do anything at this moment and then let it default back to the county? I just wanted clarity. I apologize.
Well, with a memorandum of understanding, if you go ahead and accept the park, and I'm pretty well okay with purchasing the Browns Mill facility, it's just a matter of the operation of it for the summer is the real concern. So if the cab county could continue the operation under a memorandum of agreement or some type of an agreement outside of it, but it's a matter of questioning that, whether it can happen.
I can't speak for DeKalb County. I can say this. Over the several months of sitting in negotiations with them, they have indicated that they will operate Browns Mill Aquatic Center, but they are not planning, or they intend for the City of Stonecrest to run the summer camp program. So I can't speak for them directly, but that's the information that I've gathered. I believe Mr. Joyner had some similar message because he sat in those negotiations. In fact, he was very diligent at certain times to where that statement was repeated in variations to us.
And I know you've said it once, say it again. The service that you're going to provide for the summer with this vendor, how does it parallel to what has been provided in the past?
One second, you're asking me to give you an evaluation, a comparison of the two services?
Yes. I mean, you're saying that the public is essentially getting the same thing with this vendor versus what they will be getting
No,
from
they
the
will
cab.
be getting the same type of service, but not the same service. I do have that PowerPoint today. You have it in front of you. I can identify some key areas on that.
You can pull up this handout.
So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to hear from Councilman Turner, Councilwoman Odama, and then I want you to do this presentation right now.
I think you were saying something a little bit about that because I'm concerned about the vendor. Is this vendor, you say it's not providing the same kind of service?
No, sir. I said it's the same service, but I felt Councilman Turner, George Turner, was asking me for my opinion or evaluation of the two services, the cab service and the vendor that we're recommending.
Okay, so once we get this, let's say
That's
we,
what I was asking for clarity. Sorry.
once we vote on this and we have this in place and all, this vendor will provide the product and the services we need for this summer program, am I correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
Without any interruption, without any kind of distractions in any way in reference to how it was done before?
No, they're going to provide summer camp youth services. Currently, DeKalb County provides that same, a service with that same title on it.
And is this vendor a member, I guess a member vendor, where you could have to join a membership to be a part of this?
The MOU is for the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta, which is rated 4 out of 4 stars from the charity Navigator. It has won several awards in quality of service. In fact, Ms. Smith, that came up earlier, one of the members of the public referred to Redan. I can pull out Redan information as a case study to show you the quality that we're bringing in, and then we can always highlight what we currently have, which I'd rather just focus on what we would be bringing in.
So we won't be sacrificing anything. These parents don't have any really don't have any concerns about what we're going because this will be taken care of. Am I correct?
As far as what are you?
As the vendor being provided.
Yes, in that MOU, the vendor would be providing that services. Yes, sir. The same time frame that DeKalb County, 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Breakfast and lunch DeKalb County provides. Our vendor would be breakfast and lunch, but the lunch would be a hot lunch and not a cold lunch, which DeKalb County provides now. It would be a hot lunch, so it's a little upgrade in lunch. And in the pricing I told you earlier, which is substantially different.
Just a point of clarity, although this is a very related discussion, I just want to make sure everyone's clear that this vote is on the IGA and not on the MOU with the provider. So this is just the IGA with DeKalb County. Well, all that the IGA says in regards to services is that the City of Stonecrest will provide them. It doesn't say how. And so the how is the other contract with the service provider.
The how might affect.
So, okay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilwoman.
Maybe you answered this already, but is this a all or none? Is this IGA all or none?
Currently, the way it's written up is for all the parks except for Arabian Mountain, the same parks that the oversight committee that this council activated and charged with evaluating the purchase, voted on and recommended to council. So yes, all the parks that are recommended by that council and all the parks that was in the original layout of acquisition.
Okay.
Aside from Arabian Mountain.
And thank you. And okay, since I've been sitting up here last 30 minutes or so, I've received a host of texts and emails from the community. I think the community is asking the council to take a look at passing this in an a la carte format. Is that an option?
So this vote today is to agree on the terms of the IGA so that DeKalb County and the City of Stonecrest are both voting on the same terms and entering into a contract together, and we have to abide by the terms. So if you want an a la carte approach, that would require several different IGAs for each park. And so the only way to do that would be to have different IGAs for each park.
Okay, I would be looking at two IGAs. One would be for everything you have listed on here minus the two Browns Mill parks.
So, and also, again, there are two parties to this contract. So just because City of Stonecrest makes a decision, DeKalb County would also need to make a decision. So if we have two separate IGAs, we
But
would
what
have
about
to,
the citizens? I just want someone here to please address what the citizens want and just help me understand. I keep hearing what DeKalb County wants, and I've counted the number of times that someone have said what DeKalb County wants. Well, I'm a Stonecrest legislator, so I'm concerned about what does the people in Stonecrest want. And based on, I can show them to you right now, based on this long list of text messages and emails, they actually want an a la carte IGA. That's number one. Number two is under Article 4, it talks about and maybe Mr. Sean or the city manager can address this. It does talks about who's going to manage the county employees. And this look like it's a co-management system where it makes it real clear that the park director, if he's got any concerns about the employees, he have to go to the county.
Councilwoman Adama, for that section, I believe you're in 4.
I'm in, it says here, let me just read this right quick.
Well, I know what section you're talking about.
Okay.
I just wanted to have you identify the actual section by number.
5.4.
5, okay. That section actually was put in there from another arrangement, and that is one that DeKalb County, as recent as today, put in writing that they would like to have removed. So they want that removed.
Okay, because here it says the parks director, which is you, right, does not have the authority to direct the activities of any of the parks departments. So I just want to, Madam Clerk, can you put that in the record?
So no, Can I clarify that provision? So
Yes.
what that provision is saying is that the city of Stonecrest cannot direct DeKalb County employees, and DeKalb County employees cannot direct city of Stonecrest employees.
So, okay, and we don't have any employees, right? Because,
Councilwoman, we have employees.
all right, this is my last question. On the, and this just came up just a moment ago. On the cost, the $100 an acre. On the $100 an acre, I'm just wondering if you are aware that when Sandy Springs was formed, I guess back in 2005, there was a state law that was passed, and one of the legislators brought it to my attention, where any new city could purchase from the county any park in their city limits for $5,000. And since that time, Dunwoody, Brookhaven, Milton, Johns Creek, and the list goes on.
Yeah,
So that may not be, maybe that's not the case.
That is not the
But
case.
I just wanted to,
Councilwoman, at this time, the city has the option to purchase any parkland from the county at $100 an acre. So that's where we're operating.
okay, so let me just
But
close with,
what we'd like to do now is, I think at this point there's a lot of discomfort with what we have now. Let's we've been at this for over a year, but I think staff we just need to get back with DeKalb County and see what the options are here.
I'm going to disagree with you, Mr. Joyner. I appreciate your knowledge and your diligence on this, but you and I both know if we turn this sideways, what's going to happen is now we got 100 people that are sitting out here. We're going to have 400 people up here next mad at us because we didn't have the stomach to do the right thing today. We have to close this today. No disrespect to you, Mr. Joyner, whatsoever. You know I know that.
Right.
But we cannot, the average person does not know the animal that we're dealing with DeKalb County. You have no idea how far we have come to get this done today. So if you want to break it out, separate it, $100 an acre, do this, dance a jig, whatever it is, DeKalb County does not care. And then once this goes sideways, you all are going to be even more mad. So I just have to tell you the truth as mayor and as a person and as a parent and as a pet owner and as all those things. This is not going to be good for us if we don't do this today. We can make all the presentations that we want to make. But I'm imploring you, council, to let's go ahead and handle this business so that we can move forward and then we can negotiate with anybody you want, parents, kids, the recreation center itself. But we have no negotiating ability whatsoever on the sideline without this piece. I don't know how else to say it.
You're exactly correct. Yeah.
And I'd just like to make a point. I don't have an issue with purchasing the parks. And I know I was frustrated a few minutes ago, and I am. Don't get me wrong. I'm still frustrated. It's the operation of the park that I have the biggest concern with. And I absolutely correct. We this is in the budget. We voted for it. We have all intention on providing the service. And the acquisition process, I don't think is the difficult part, other than getting the county to agree to our millage and all that breakout. And that's on you fancy folks to handle that. But we really should talk a little bit more about the operation of Browns Mill Recreation Center and really get down to what our concerns are and how we can solve that problem. And although obviously time is of essence with that too, so it's not like it's a huge break. But I'm in agreement with purchasing the parks. We've got to work through how and who's going to operate Browns Mill Rec.
Okay, then we're all on the same page then.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to offer a motion that we go ahead and vote on this. I offer a motion that we approve the IGA with DeKalb County as written.
All right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Those changes just came today.
All right.
From DeKalb.
With the changes. All right, been properly moved. Do I have a second? I'm going to second it. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
nay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, council. Okay, citizens, let me say this to you so that we're all on the same page. And please listen to me, because I want you to understand where this is. And I really want you to listen to this, folks. I really want you to listen to this. We did not come this far to do what we're doing to abandon where we are. This is not what is going to happen. We're not going to come this far, have the money and the power and the management and the skill and the citizens to do what we need to do to let it fall. That's not going to happen. Do you understand how many people stand back and say, they're going to screw this up, they're going to screw this up, they're going to screw this up? Not going to screw it up. It's not going to screw up. So the same level of service that you've been receiving will be that same or better. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here at Stonecrest. So you can't mull around in the dirt going, oh, something's new going to happen. Nobody's going to take care of me. I'm going to come up here and be mad and complain. That is not going to happen. We haven't proven you wrong at this point. If we can turn around and do a deal so that a gas station won't be in your neighborhood, and then turn it into from a gas station to a park, period, we have an opportunity to make it happen. So you have your say. You can do anything, those things that you like to do, but we're going to take care of business at hand here. And we've done this the right way. We've done this with citizen involvement as best that we can. We'll still have more citizen involvement. And I agree with, Councilwoman Cobble, wholeheartedly that we'll make sure that we're doing the things that we're supposed to do. But you cannot come here expecting it to be bad, then look for it to be bad and think something is going to change. So now we own it. All they have to do is to bring it to their particular piece of it, bring it to their commission, sign it, and then it belongs to us. Because some of you are the same folks that's been unhappy for 30 years, and now we got a chance to change it. So give us a chance to change it. But my kids went through there too. I just didn't show up from Chicago. 35 years I've been here, same place, same street. Let us do our job. That's all that we're asking. Give us the same chance that you gave. You don't even have to give us the same chance you gave to DeKalb County, because you gave them 30 years. We've only been in business a year and 9 months. So let us have an opportunity to do the things that we do, and we'll make you proud. Otherwise, you're going to unelect us. It's not that big a deal. But give us the chance to the people that are elected to make these things happen. That's the only thing that we're asking you. Mr. De Palma.
Are we at contract, or he's gonna do his presentation first?
Good morning, good evening, Mayor and Council. Today I'm going to present on the MOU for youth services. I do want to stress, because of tonight, some of the comments being said, is our intention prior to tonight and going forward is always to include the community through focus groups. When we go through the master park planning process, do similar engagements as the comprehensive plan path went and the process went, but even more engaging by going out to the community physically and not asking them just to come into City Hall. Unfortunately, because of the time restraint, as we've noted prior, that we had to now move swiftly to ensure that we can provide youth services for the summer. I wanted to just give you a brief overview of how the overall system is going to function. There's a body, mind, and soul. The body is the facilities, the infrastructure. The mind is the park master plan, the park system master plan, as we mentioned, programming, budget, policies, and so forth. And then so is the citizens. As you see, there's a lot of energy and participation tonight, and we hope that continues in a more productive and community building way going forward, and not just tonight when there's a controversial topic at hand. Also, advisory boards, staff, and community partners. We're looking to, in the future, to continue programming, but expand programming that the Stonecrest citizens are not privileged to at this time, but we are going to bring in the future: youth programming, family programming, active older adults, and enrichment. Now let's go to the MOU. The partners that we're looking to partner with is Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta. If you see, they have four pillars that they focus in on, which is to be physically literacy, civil and social engagement, character and leadership building. Their academic focus is STEM, literacy, arts and culture. Their emotional development is social and emotional development. So they have foundational pieces of how they build their curriculum and what they bring into their programs. Staff training, something that Councilman Turner, Rob Turner asked earlier about the difference of programs. One thing that this program is bringing that majority of programs in the nation don't have when it comes to youth services is a well-rounded and very comprehensive training program. Majority of these things that you see up here are done annually. Almost all of those are done annually. This is something that I know for firsthand that most municipalities, including large county municipalities, don't do annually. So this is something that this provider specifically does with their staff, and they have at their organization level dedicated trainers within their organization to do on-site and remote training of their staff. Background checks. This again is something that's done annually, and which again, some organizations don't do it or are not as diligent doing it as often, but as you can see, they are in compliance with the Georgia Department of Human Services because they have a large contract so they can work within the state. They go through fingerprinting and not just an application. Some organizations go through an application and don't actually fingerprint. I believe DeKalb County does fingerprint. I don't know how often. But they definitely do this, and you can see some of the other details regarding the national crime background check that they do it nationwide and not just in the state of Georgia. Here we go. These are some of the comparison as far as operationally. Again, the hours are very similar. The cost is different. The cost to the actual citizen and their child is different. And then some of the nutrition, as I pointed out earlier, is slightly different. Again, this is a highly reputable organization. This particular club, the Metro Atlanta Club, is one of the highest rated, not just Boys and Girls Club, but nonprofit youth services organizations in the United States, and they have national awards for that. So keep in mind, we're not just getting a Boys and Girls Club out of anywhere. We're getting one of their best in their system, not only for their system, but for providers in this industry. So, and then as far as the cost for us as the city to bring in the provider, currently with the estimate of information that I did get from DeKalb County, they estimate their cost for to the taxpayer is about $108,000. This is not including materials. They could not identify what they spend on food specifically, and this does not include supporting staff such as janitorial, any kind of maintenance coming in, anything of that nature. This is a very raw number looked at over several months trying to gather data from many different sources, including their Parks and Recreation Department. Our contract sits there at $83,583. This includes materials and the food. As we noted earlier, the hot lunches would be rolled into that as well. I made it quick because it's a late night. And There you go. I'm here for any questions.
Got a couple.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
De Palma. Council, let's start, Ms.
Oh, sure. The numbers,
Yes, ma'am.
they look good. They look really good.
Yes,
Tell me
ma'am.
how we got there. What's making that number so different?
Which number?
Sorry. The difference between what it cost the county, 108 grand, so the almost 20 grand difference. What is the major contributing factor to that difference?
I cannot, I cannot answer for DeKalb County on how they manage staff and so forth. I can tell you from experience that I have is that when I go into a system, I evaluate how they schedule staff, how they train staff, and then streamline and cross-train staff so that they can be more efficient. And I, just in one last department, I saved over 23% of our overall staff costs by doing those fine-tuning. So that 20,000 to me is 25,000 is very minimum to a bigger operation that I've been in the past.
And so I understand that you can't speak for the county. I was hoping you'd more speak to the vendor's cost, and there had to have been some comparison to level of service, programs provided. Maybe there's some differences between the two. So, I mean, unless DeKalb County just shot you this number in an email with nothing to support it, I mean, there's got to be a reason why this number is this and that number is that.
Well, okay, so Boys and Girls Club they are a nonprofit. Right now, what we're paying for this program right here, the $83,000, as an example, if we were to keep them for the next 10 years, each year the price would go down. And then at some point they would become a legacy club and they would not charge us anything. And they would just have a contract with being a renter in our building. The reason why is because they have grant and fundraising arms that they now supplement that cost to the user by doing that.
Yeah.
So
I have a small understanding of how they operate, but a cost analysis usually identifies exactly where you're achieving the savings and or increase if there was such. So I was just hoping that we had some more detail to that cost analysis versus just giving me the numbers. I mean, they sound wonderful, but I've just never had a cost analysis with no detail. But I'll move on from that. The contract mentions 100 students, a maximum of 100 students at Browns Mill Recreation Center. What is the maximum that DeKalb County serves now?
in what program? Their summer program or their after-school program?
Both.
Honestly, the numbers that they gave me, how they verify it, I don't know. I can go to the case study I said about Redan, because it was mentioned earlier, or I can tell you with spot check evaluations, for their after-school program, they truly underserve the community when it comes to what we call ADA, which is average daily attendance, and it's a low number compared to what they are capable of carrying. The reason the vendor and I, when we were negotiating, came up with the 100 number is because they feel they can still serve the community, but because it's a brand new facility for them, a brand new community that they're this section that they're coming into Stonecrest, even though they're in Redan, which is nearby us, they wanted to make sure they can still put their brand, their quality of service, and maintain it with this. There's a lot of unknown factors. Again, we're not in the building. There's some modifications that we have to make to the building prior to them coming in, and so that's a I don't want to say huge, but that is a significant disadvantage for someone that comes in with a high quality product and now wants to safeguard that brand. So that's where we came up with the 100 capacity number.
Okay, so are you certain that we are not, by setting this number at 100, that we're not eliminating students who have already been served prior years, right? So if we don't have a clue on the numbers for DeKalb County, right, how do we know 100 is not cutting off our residents, our students?
I understand your question. I wouldn't be able to accurately answer that based on the fact that the information gathered is not accurate coming, not as clear coming from the county. And then remember, we're bringing a vendor in. We're asking them to come into the building in 1/3 of the time that I would recommend us building a summer program, but they're prepping it for us ahead of time so that we can properly serve at a high level this first year. This is inauguration year, and
Right.
this is where we're being put into.
Sean, I understand all of that. I just don't know how we say in one breath that we're operating at a high level of service, but we have no measurement against that. So we don't know, we can't tell how many students were served before, so we don't know if we're cutting students off, right? So how are we measuring that as a higher level of service if we don't know if 50 kids won't be served? Is that still a high level of service? We can't identify the cost savings. We know there's a savings, we just can't identify from where. So how are we claiming a high level of service, but we don't have these measurable facts? And you don't have to answer that because I obviously know that we don't have those facts from DeKalb County. The only other question I had for you about this just left me. Sorry, it just left me.
Councilwoman Cabo, as you're pondering on what you were going to say, I just want to refer back to that case study with Redan. Redan, they started, when boys and girls came in, they literally, ADA, meaning attendance per day, not what the county claimed, not what we weren't sure what was the number, was 65 in that building. They grew that program to 180. So that means for decades prior, at 65, that remaining 115 that you're concerned about, and I agree, it's a legitimate concern, they were being underserved. So right now, the product is coming in, it's a very high quality product. Yes, there may be some children that we have to identify. We can work with the vendor and say, hey, where's that threshold of if we do get max out at 100 and we get another 5 to 10 to 15, what does that look like right now? Again, it is a brand new program coming in to this facility that is unknown. It is not our facility even at this point today.
Right. And so, and understandably, the parents have the same concern, right? And so do we up here. I do remember my question now.
Yes,
One of the residents, Ms. Smith, mentioned that Boys and Girls Club has a membership fee. Is that going to be applicable here?
Yes, they do have a membership fee. That membership and the fees that we're talking about right here for the client or the patron or the child or the family is ones that can be paid in payments. They're not, so $175 would be paid over time as $24 versus $66 as you see per week for the 528. That being said, if they belong to a certain medical group, I think it was mentioned yesterday, they can get that waived completely and the fee itself for the school year, and then that fee that you're talking about membership. But there is a membership fee. Again, it's a sliding scale. This is a nonprofit agency that's trying to be inclusive, not exclusive.
Sure, I understand that. So you're saying the 175 includes the fee for camp and the membership fee to the Boys and Girls Club?
No, ma'am.
So the membership fee is outside of the 175/410.
Correct.
Right. So what does that cost?
That membership fee, I believe, is under 150, but I can give you the exact number. It's again a sliding scale, so they keep it on a very. They serve specifically. The majority of that they're designed to serve are people that are on the sliding scale, so that they can afford it and be inclusive.
I totally
and not
understand.
a flat rate, regardless of who you are. If you make $8,000 a year or $80,000 a year. They adjust to that to ensure that the child is included in the program.
I understand that totally and appreciate their sliding scale for income based, I guess is the technical term for it. I wanted to make sure that we are presenting the information as clear as possible. So we're saying that the fee will be roughly somewhere on the sliding scale between 175 and 410, but then there is an additional cost to the parent.
Correct.
Because of this particular vendor.
Correct.
Right.
Now,
and
that
then,
being
and
said,
that cost is a sliding scale cost, and I understand that. So when this information is presented, right, to the community,
Yes, ma'am.
we are absolutely going to present the 2 separate fees so that everybody is understanding that this is a membership-based program, which is something they don't currently have to deal with, right?
Right.
Right. So this is, I understand that we're making the argument that this is a world-renowned organization, and I'm not saying that they're not. But this is significantly different than the structure that we have now.
Correct.
And because of those differences, there are cost changes. So that's why I would like to have seen the cost analysis in a true analysis form so that I can see the difference, so that when I get the conversations and the phone calls and the text messages, I can articulate what this is.
Okay, and you're saying when you're using the term cost analysis, you're saying to the cost to the patron?
No, the cost to us.
The cost to us is the 83,000.
Yeah, I know what the total number is, but I don't know what makes up that differential. But that's here nor there at this point.
Well, before we leave this topic, because you did enter this, there's a sliding scale. They have level 1, 2, 3, and 4. The 2 at 225 for the entire summer is where 80 to 85% of all the participants sit at or below. So unless something's going to change different, we're totally different in this one little section of DeKalb County, about 80 to 85% of the participants this summer will be sitting at the 225 and below. So that 410 is if someone is making an executive level, and then the next level at the I think it's 340 or 350, is now someone that is still close to the executive level, upper middle class.
Yeah, I totally
so 80,
get that.
So if we want to get down to that, we can start putting a lot more numbers and say, well, 80 to 85 people are going to sit at 225 and below, which would be now almost half of what our current program is offered there.
Right, and I understand that. In that question, I was hoping to see what is the differences that we would have between the DeKalb County's cost and our cost. Just the same as we're doing with any other service that we're providing, that we're taking over. What is the service level difference between the two, which drives the cost difference? But we don't have to keep going down that road. The only last question I had for you is, has the city attorneys seen, checked off, and approved on this contract?
On the MOU, no, it's sitting with them now, because we're going to have you say that we can go into that with whatever adjustments you want to offer and take back for that negotiation with the vendor.
And if I may interject, keeping in mind that, we don't own the park yet.
Hey, Mr.
So, you got to be careful about having a contract to pay somebody to do something on some piece of property you don't even own. That's the kind of thing that irritates, my kind of folks.
Well,
City manager
that
types.
is why Mr. Joyner pointed out earlier at another discussion that another MOU would have to be put in place with DeKalb County from the City of Stonecrest, so that we can bring our vendor in ample time to ensure that we can have them situate themselves in that facility. That in itself is a whole nother negotiation that Mr. Joyner and I will have to sit down with DeKalb and ensure that we can at least get those terms put into an MOU to bring forth for your approval.
That I'm more familiar with. It was just, I know you're calling this an MOU, but this is very similar to a contract.
Correct.
So I was hoping that the legal attorneys had gone through this before we did.
Okay, so then that being said, Councilwoman Cobble, that will be my onus. I only allowed them, or I only presented to them today so that we would be able to gather your insight, council's insight, to make those adjustments and not have the attorneys look before and after those adjustments. So I apologize, ma'am.
I think I got an easier question for you. I don't know if I do or not, but my question is simple. I have kids at Browns Mill last summer that is under DeKalb County. This coming summer, I want to put my kids back in Browns Mill. As a parent, what I want to know is, will I probably be paying more or less And will I probably be getting better or worse service
Okay, so
between last year and this year? Coming.
okay, so as far as fees, and you said children, right? So more than one, because Boys and Girls Club has a $25 for each sibling reduction, so that also helps in cost. So cost wise, for the entire summer, with membership fee, you will be saving money. Now, that's at the executive level. If you're anywhere below that, as far as income, you're going to be paying much less than money. In some cases, less than half.
Okay. Part one, part two.
Part two.
Would I be getting better service, or would I be getting same service or worse service as my kids?
Okay. As you know, Councilman, last week I went to Houston to do an audit of City of Houston's Parks and Recreation Department. Their budget just for the department is $71 million. They asked me to come in and look at their standards of how they function and give them recommendations how to improve. Not trying to toot a horn, but I have 20 years plus experience, masters in this field, and a tremendous amount of certifications and taught on national levels on how to improve standards. The product that we're bringing in supersedes the product that's there now. The product there now is not the same level as what we're bringing in.
I just have some of the same concern we expressed earlier, and that is the ability to get this in place in time. Because as you stated, we don't own the parks yet. And depending on what DeKalb County does will determine the date that we may well make that transfer. And only then can we enter into a contract. And will it be too late to meet the deadline for summer camp to start?
Just real quick to interject. Actually, I had that discussion with Zach Williams this morning, and the plan is and I think Sean may have just mentioned it. We will be entering into a memorandum of understanding with DeKalb County prior to us taking possession of the parks, so that the team will be able to come in 2 weeks in advance of June 3rd. That'd be, I believe, we're looking at March 20th, for the Boys and Girls Club to come into the facility and set up in preparation for a June 3rd start.
So we'll be operating off of an MOU,
Yes.
and not owning the parks.
Correct. And that's why we have to do the MOU, because we will not own the park at that time.
Okay. And once we own the parks, then we can contract. Is that the way this is going to march?
I'm not understanding that question.
No, you have an MOU to operate it because you don't own it yet.
Correct.
And once we own it, then you'll come back.
One step to your left.
Yeah.
The IGA that we previously discussed
Right.
will allow the city to operate the park services prior to owning the park, and then once we own the park, we will also operate the park services. The MOU is to take care of the time in between the IGA being enacted. So the IGA starts June 3rd. We'll need people to be on the parks before that date. That's what the MOU is for. Once the IGA is enacted, the IGA gives us the authority to operate park services on the parks that we own or the ones that we don't yet own. It's depending on the terms of the IGA. So that what the IGA says is we will take over the parks on June 3rd or when all the title work and environmental work is done. That's when we will own the parks. And then it says separately, on June 3rd, we will take over the park services. So what that does is it gives us a little wiggle room. If we don't get all the title work and the environmental work by June 3rd, it's okay. We can still operate the park services. But the goal is to get both done at the same time.
Okay. And perhaps I missed it. Is this the only group we considered an MOU with, or were there others?
No, we also sat and negotiated and worked out with the YMCA of South DeKalb, and in addition, we went and looked at what's called Kelly Services, which is a company a vendor itself, not a nonprofit or a hybrid of that, as the other two are, that does provide similar services. We would have to make some type of modifications, but their pricing was way, way out of what would be respective.
So what you're dealing with now is without a bid, in essence, low bid.
This would be the lower of the two bids, if we were in the bid process, but we weren't.
We're
We were
not
in the
yet.
negotiation process, sir.
Okay,
Deal for now.
I'm open now. Let's see. Thank you, Sean. Hold
Yes,
on.
ma'am.
Okay, the documentation I have indicates that Browns Mill already can't meet demand, and they're serving probably 50% more children than this contract calls for. Can you speak to that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that first part?
Yeah, Browns Mill Park, they already are struggling to meet the demand, the current demand.
In after-school program, ma'am?
Pardon me?
In the after-school program?
In
You're
their-
speaking currently what's going on today?
Yeah, they're struggling to meet the demand. That's come to my attention. So my question is, when I look at the numbers, it looks like this contract, Browns Mill is serving like almost 50% more children than this contract calls for.
You're speaking of for summer camp or after school? Because you said at this time. You mean today, after school program?
In the summer camp. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
strictly
I see
summer
why you're
camp.
confused. The summer
Strictly
camp.
summer camp.
Strictly the summer camp.
Okay.
The summer camp is struggling.
Okay. And I understand that's the statement. There's nothing that was provided to us to support that. That's the first and foremost. Secondly, there are modifications that are needed in that facility. Again, with the tight time frame that we're dealing with, the brand and the quality of recognition of that brand between us, the city, and the vendor, we felt that that 100 mark currently will ensure that we have a very high quality program for the summer with the time frame that we have to get in there.
So it's not making much sense, though. I mean, they're struggling now. The contract is calling for 50%. 50% increase.
Right. And you're making the statement as if we have facts in front of us that 50% that they're struggling is a factual statement. There's nothing to support that from DeKalb County that I've received. That's what I'm trying to say. So I did not go off of comments from others. I went off of documentation from DeKalb County, then bringing in several vendors into the facility, seeing what product they run for after school program, comparing it to a summer camp program. If it's same or similar quality, those numbers, I would have to go by the information that was given from DeKalb County of their operations in the past.
I've got another question. So I know we're talking about this vendor providing the aftercare service and the summer camp service, but the rec center does provide other programs.
Yes, ma'am.
So who's staffing the other programs? How is that programming being done? Is it by this same vendor?
Okay, so currently how Browns Mill functions, and because you mentioned after school program, they open at 1 on a Monday through Friday. They open at 1 and they close at 9. Okay? This vendor would come in at that same time frame to 8 o'clock if we were to extend that option for after school program, and then at that time afterwards we would then staff it or bring in a different organization. We've already sat with the YMCA to start bringing in youth and adult youth programming and active adult programming. So in fact, what the plan is going forward, what would be a vision of the plan for after summer in school time frame is that we would have the YMCA partner with us and bring in programming for active adults in the morning when Browns Mill currently is closed. They are not open before 1 on a normal school year day. And then have active older adults the Boys and Girls Club provide youth services, and then we finish out the night with the staff just running whatever, or YMCA running whatever youth basketball program, youth enrichment, and any contract employees, contracted vendors like jazzercise, flute playing, chess instructor, anything of that nature.
Okay.
A STEM teacher, anything of that nature.
So no one outside of the participants in the after-school program or summer camp will have to pay this membership fee to
For youth services, they would.
for any youth services.
No. For the youth services of summer camp, and or if we extend that our contract going forward for after-school program.
So this one currently is only summer camp?
It's summer camp with the option of after-school program inserted. That's why there's no pricing there, because we would revisit them once summer camp is underway and we're seeing the product, and then we bring it back analysis to you of what we're looking to pay in the future with that program if we were going that direction.
Okay, so only those two services would the participants have to pay the membership fee in addition to the fee to participate in the program?
I would love you to end that sentence with both on that sliding scale would be much more cheaper than the product that's there now, but that's
Well, I can't say that because you can't tell me what the difference is between the two. That's just numbers to me. You just telling me that. I can't actually factually say that's true. I could write that down.
Just one other thing. To be clear, this is just to get us through the summer, and then we have an option of extending it.
Yes, sir.
And when it comes to getting started, based on where we stand right now, we have little or no time to take any other direction. Otherwise, we miss some. We're already up against deadlines now. Is that what I hear you saying?
I'm saying that we're working with several different pieces here. We have the Cab County to negotiate with, and we have the vendor. The vendor does need to have allotted time to be in that building.
Are you saying the cab kind of was out of the picture in terms of providing this service for the summer?
Right, but working with them to get into that building. So remember, there's a second MOU that we're going to come back to ask to negotiate with the Cab County so we can get into the building. So the answer to that in its best form is, right now, our option is what we brought forward to you tonight. Our option. If I had options, I would have came with the options to the council. Trust and believe that. But I did not have that. I have a option for you, and it is a very high quality option for you outside of the tight time frame.
And if no is not an option, then we're really not asking.
That's the point I made an hour ago.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. De Palma, are we looking for a vote this evening, or what do you want to do this evening?
Yes, what's up at hand is to allow us to take whatever input that you are saying,
Okay.
to approve that MOU, and in whatever direction you need the attorneys to move forward so that we can go ahead and finalize the agreement with the vendor.
All right.
It's recommended.
So you have all the input that council has given you?
Yes, sir.
And council, I want to move that we provide, if we have anything else, we provide Mr. Palmer in writing with regards to what that MOU should look like, so that he can present back to us. We just keep
I
going.
cannot come back to you in this time frame, sir.
In this time frame.
Tonight is,
All right.
do you want us to move forward, yes or no, sir?
I want us to move forward. So let me restate my motion there.
Can I mention something before you state it though? Because the attorneys have not reviewed or checked off on this contract. So I most certainly will not, and which I have not, I have practiced in the past, approve a contract that our attorneys have not vetted. It's not an MOU because it has a cost, a scope, a date, a termination, an extension. It's most certainly a contract.
How you want to play this, Mr. Palmer? And Mr.
I hate to be a stickler, But if there's a way you could protect us in there from, not having to provide service on something that we don't end up owning by then, for if there's any reason that happens, I mean, I don't know how we're gonna protect ourselves there either.
I just been advised that you can approve it, subject to attorney's approval.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Is that okay with you?
I'll sleep a lot better.
Okay. All right. I'll make, let me renew my motion because it was not a second, so I'll restate it. I move that we move forward with Mr. De Palma's Youth Services Summer Camp Program with the oversight and approval of legal. I have a second.
Second.
All right, properly moved in second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Procedure is procedure.
Procedure. I just don't understand why we talk for 2 hours and then we don't, and something else happens. So, it's okay. It's okay with me. It's okay with me. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for that. Prior to people leaving, we do have some forms back there so that they can put names down and contact information, so that as soon as we finalize everything, we'll reach out to them and make sure that their child can get registered for summer camp.
Thank you, Mr. De Palma.
Please make sure they know there's 2 fees.
Mr. De Palma, I have you for number 4. Recommendations to contract to select a vendor for landscaping maintenance.
No, sir. We
moved that.
We were taking that off. Yes, sir.
All right. Then I apologize, sir. And we also took off the first reading for Chapter 13 F regulations. All right. Then that takes us, Council, to first reading Chapter 20 for personnel.
Yes, sir. An ordinance of the City of Stonecrest, Georgia, adopting Chapter 20 entitled Personnel of the City Code. This ordinance is to adopt the regulations governing personnel matters that substantially mirror DeKalb County's existing regulations.
Okay.
Does council have any questions?
Council, the floor is open to you.
Just one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
CH2M, we don't have any, the city doesn't really have any employees, right? Other than the council, the mayor, and the, the parks director, communications director.
Yes, ma'am.
So, is this policy, is this ordinance aligned with CH2M policies and with federal and state employment guidelines and laws?
So this ordinance is aligned specifically to DeKalb County's ordinance, but yes, ma'am, it is not speaking of CH2M, but in regards to the Federal Labor Standards Act, it does speak to certain federal acts within this ordinance.
Okay, so who is this for? If the mayor, the council, and the city manager, the city attorney, and there's community development person, it says that they're excluded from it.
Yes, ma'am,
So,
they are exempt.
Since we probably only have 2 or 3 that are covered, which 2 or 3 employees are covered?
Well, I would assume that Stonecrest would not always be under the guidance of CH2M, and that one day you would actually establish your own staff and personnel. So this is in the event that the day does come when you actually establish your own personnel, you can actually amend this ordinance to actually tailor it to the city of Stonecrest. So actually right now it's just a technicality. And once the city begins to grow, then you can actually amend to the suitability of Stonecrest.
So who would this apply to today?
It would apply to I assume the Parks and Rec employees.
Okay. We don't have any. We're sitting up here and it doesn't apply to us.
Only employees, everybody else.
Okay.
So it's for the future.
Yes, ma'am. It is
Thank
for the
you.
future.
Okay. Thank you, Julian.
Madam Attorney, that was the first read?
Yes, sir. That is the first read.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to number 7, Chapter 26 for wreckers.
Yes, sir. An ordinance of the City of Stonecrest, Georgia, adopting Chapter 26 entitled Records of the City Code. This ordinance is to provide regulation governing records that substantially mirror DeKalb County's existing regulations. So basically what this ordinance does is it regulates tow trucks, actually. Basically saying who has to clean up the right-of-ways in the event of an accident and things of that nature in regards to business licenses and the process that you have to go through to be fingerprinted, background checks, all that good stuff to actually establish a business. A tow truck business, I'm sorry.
Got it. Council?
It's first read.
First read. Thank you, madam.
No comments.
Okay. We will move to the public hearing sector of our council meeting. First, I need, if I say this correctly, Madam and Mr. City Attorney, with regards to RZ 19-001, understand that they won't take a, oh, well, thank you. I'll apologize, ma'am.
Oh, that's okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. This evening, item RZ 19-001, residential rezoning for Panola Road. The applicant has submitted a written request to withdraw the application. This application was initially submitted where the applicant was requesting to change the zoning from R100 to R75. Since that time, the applicants and the applicant's representative, they have made the decision that they will just develop the site within the parameters of the R100, which is the existing zoning on the property. So all they're asking is for your approval for the withdrawal of their application.
Right.
I thought that was.
Good evening, Michelle Battle with Battle Law, 1 West Court Square, Decatur, Georgia, 30030. The applicant is asking for the withdrawal of the application based on the comments received back from the community. And I would like to make one point. I'm going to take this moment. I believe that in order to not quell the public hearings, it is imperative that you all consider moving all of the zoning matters to the top of the agenda. Yes. It is unfair to the public to have them sit here until 11 o'clock at night on issues that could be discussed afterwards. And typically I've been doing land use and zoning work for almost 20 years now. And these hearings are held at the top of the agenda, not at the bottom, so that people who are in support or in opposition have an opportunity to come up. And so I think that that's only fair, particularly when you have such late evenings. So I hope you respectfully I say that. But with that said, we would ask for the withdrawal of the application. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion.
We need a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Move that we accept the withdrawal of this application.
All right, properly moved.
Second.
And second. Any further discussion?
For withdrawal,
You withdrew.
you don't have to open it for withdrawal.
Nope.
Attorneys have said no.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay, so
Withdrawn.
thank you. So we will move forward with RZ 19-002, residential rezoning for Dogwood Press and 8078 Oakwood. The applicant was requesting, this is an existing project that was already approved. And there were a few parcels that were not the same zoning classification as the majority of the parcels that are part of this project. So what we've requested of the applicant is to ensure that the zoning is similar throughout the entire development. This particular project is for a 117-unit subdivision. It has already been approved. We have some lots that are miszoned that we were just trying to align up with the rest of the zoning of the property. So the applicant is asking that 6 of the parcels in the Parks of Stonecrest subdivision be rezoned from RSM to residential small lot 16 in order to have consistent development with consistent zoning, within the development. Once again, this is already an approved project. We are just trying to align the zoning. This item was heard at the April 2nd Planning Commission meeting, and they unanimously recommended approval. Staff recommends approval. So we're bringing this to you, and we're recommending approval on this particular item. Thank you. Now this you have to open.
All right. Was I take a motion to open the public hearing for RZ 19-002? 502.
Motion to open.
Second.
All right, properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing is now open.
Good evening again, Michelle Battle with Battle Law, 1 West Court Square, Decatur, Georgia. As staff has already indicated, this is really just cleaning up some remnant parcels. This project is actually underway for the R60 component of it. This will not in any way impact the overall density that has already been basically approved by staff. We will be coming back before you with the lot subdivision plat. I guess the lot combo and then the lot subdivision plat ultimately. This is the final parcel that is part of the parks at Stonecrest, and so the homes that will be built will be consistent with the development that has already been present. And in fact, these lots are slightly larger than the lots that were allowed in the RSM land use designation. This is actually down zoning to R60. Thank you.
Okay. So we've heard from the applicant. We start with those that are opposed.
Mayor, I have a Jerry Washington. They did not indicate whether they were in support or opposition to the
Okay.
matter.
Mr. Washington, are you still here? Okay. Seeing none. Ready? Going once? Going twice? That time ends. Now for those that are in favor. All righty. Attorney Battle, you have the rest of the time, and she passes. I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
All right. Properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll take a motion for approval.
I motion that we approve.
And one question, really from staff. Just clarity. You said this is for 6 out of 6. What I read in the document was 3 out of 6 to be. So how many is it that you?
I believe it's, hold on.
In the document that was sent to us, you only mentioned rezoning 3 of them, although you identified that there are 6.
Give me 1 second to recheck the staff report. I just want to verify. Okay, so in the staff report under the proposed site plan, it appears to be 3, not 6. So
There's a
it's
total of
3 in the-
6. There's a total of 6 lots, and you're only rezoning 3 of them.
Right.
Okay.
So that's what we're actually rezoning, the 3 lots that are highlighted within the staff report that is presented before you.
I just heard you say rezoning 6 of them.
Okay, I apologize.
Okay,
It's the 3 lots that are highlighted, sir.
I'm clear.
And I would like to offer a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Got double approval and double seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Approved.
Okay, once again, we have RZ 19-003, which is a residential rezoning request, and this is for the Creekwood Conservation Subdivision. This project had begun with
3 or 4?
I'm sorry, 3. I'm sorry.
0,
Are
0.
you talking about the other case? Oh, the case number is RZ 19-004.
Oh.
I'm sorry, did I say 3?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
It's late. Don't worry about it.
Sorry. I thought I said 4. I'm sorry. It's 3. It's 4. Okay. Woo. Okay, time to keep it going. Okay, so basically this is a residential rezoning request for Creekwood Conservation Subdivision. And in essence, this project had actually begun in DeKalb County as an experiment on doing conservation lots. What staff is recommending is that basically you make some zoning or change to the zoning to residential neighborhood conservation zoning designation as opposed to the R100, which is currently rezoned. It's currently zoned that because as I stated before, DeKalb County had an intention of doing an kind of a project as a first-time conservation project. But what staff wanted to do was to ensure that the conservation methods or regulations were utilized. So we just asked that the applicant come in and rezone the property RNC, which would be the more appropriate zoning for this particular case. So this item was presented at the April 2nd Planning Commission meeting. Staff was recommending correcting the zoning for Phase 4 of this existing subdivision project to residential neighborhood conservation to accurately reflect the conservation development that is a clustering of 149 homes, preserving the historic Flat Rock Cemetery, as well as preserving existing water bodies. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this particular item, and so did staff. And staff's available if you have any questions with regards to this particular item. It was supported by the Arabia Mountain Alliance, as well as some other historic supporters. So we did receive full support on this particular rezoning request.
All right, I'll take a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we open public hearing on item RZ 19004.
Second.
Properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing is now open. The applicant?
Again, Michelle Battle with Battle Law, 1 West Court Square, Decatur, Georgia. With regards to this particular project, this is an opportunity, I believe, for there to be a win-win all the way around for the city as well as for the residents and the county. This particular piece of property was originally a part of a larger sketch plat that had been approved for a conservation subdivision. The conservation subdivision process was one that was in the supplemental zoning regulations, and the county opted to drop that when they did the update to the zoning ordinance. The RNC district has now basically replaced that process. What is interesting and unique about this particular property is that there is a historic African-American former enslaved individual cemetery that is located on the property. And additionally, there is roughly a little over 40 acres of land that DeKalb County is actually going to be acquiring on their dime to preserve as green space on this site. So at the end of the day, you'll get the preservation of the cemetery. You'll also have green space that will be preserved by DeKalb County, along with the cluster homes. This has been something that's been in process for quite some time. And with the completion of this, DeKalb will approve the acquisition of the property, and we will be able to hopefully move forward with the development of homes, with the preservation, and with the green space. Thank you.
All right. We will open the floor for those that want to speak against.
I don't have any.
Seeing none, we'll close that. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we will take those that speak in favor.
This is Mr. Johnny Waits, and he's speaking in favor.
We know Mr. Waits. Oh, too well.
Hello, Council. My name is Johnny Waits. I live in the Flat Rock community. My family has been in the county for 197 years. And we've been working with this developer for at least 11 years. And they've been a great partner on helping us save the right-of-way to our family slave cemetery. So we want you to approve this, and this is a great tourist spot already for the city of Stonecrest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waits.
Good evening, Council. Mira Cardenas with the Arabia Mountain Heritage Area Alliance. I just wanted to stress to you all this evening, it's not often that we can have such a great outcome between a threatened historic property and a developer. And I really just want to give a lot of credit to D.R. Horton for over the last 11 years of working with the Alliance and with Flat Rock Archives on 3 different ways of preserving the Flat Rock, the historic Flat Rock Cemetery. And I want to stress that has been at their own expense time and time again. They've had things resurveyed, replatted, and we're really pleased with this outcome and hope that the city council will support it. Thank you.
Excellent. Any more? Ms. Battle? All right. Staff?
That's all we have to present, so
Okay.
it's a matter of you all voting on whether you want to approve, deny, or make an alternative.
Council?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
will we close public hearing?
All right.
Second.
Properly moved in second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Public hearing is now closed.
Now, I will state that we did have conditions for this particular item, so it would be approval with conditions. The conditions we utilized were some of the conditions that were on the original sketch plat that was done in 2005. All we did was carry them over just to ensure that they were adhered to, so.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
move for approval of item RZ 19004 with conditions.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you,
Okay.
staff. Thank you,
All
Ms.
right.
Battle.
All right, so our last item for this evening is SLUP 19-001, Personal Care Home for 3317 Panola Road. The applicant was requesting a special land use permit to operate a personal care home for 4 to 6 residents within an R100 zoning category. This item was heard by the Planning Commission at the April 2nd planning meeting, and the Planning Commission recommended denial. Keep in mind that since this ordinance was adopted, we did adopt our child care, personal care home ordinance. One of the things that came up as part of the denial for this particular applicant was the fact that there was already an existing facility that was listed by the state. While staff is currently in the process of putting out notification cards to all those that are currently listed by the state to let them know that the new ordinance is in play. We're doing that right now, but that was one of the reasons why there was a recommendation of denial for this particular item.
Okay.
I've got some questions for staff.
Okay. Take it. Oh,
I spoke with Chris late last week, about this. And so I understand that the use is, if it's within 1,000 feet, that we'd have to deny the permit. However, I was trying to get more understanding and detail about the use itself. So from my understanding, the owner or the occupant of the neighbor,
Oh, okay, the other
right,
property owner.
is technically in use, but has not verified that that use was permitted by the county.
Okay, what I would say is that the other occupant of the other home, you're correct. We were unable to either get the state to verify or get information from them that specifically verifies that they're actually in operations. I know Chris was working on it. Unfortunately, he's not here, and I don't have as much detail as you may have gotten from him, but I do know that that was a particular area of conflict. Since that time, it's been kind of somebody's applying for something, trying to get it before the next.
Right.
And we've been trying to work with both individuals as it relates to this particular item. But in this particular instance, this applicant has now actually submitted the paperwork for the SLUP, and the SLUP is currently required as per the new ordinance that was already passed. So at this point right now, I don't have the details as it relates to the other individual. I just know that initially it was found out that they were also in operation. The legality or whether or not they were permitted by DeKalb or not, I don't have that level of detail to provide you this evening, but I can, get you the additional information if you need it.
Well, so that's my level of discomfort with rendering a decision one way or the other, is that we're saying that there's a use within 1,000 feet, but we cannot solidify that that use was permitted. So in a sense, we're saying that an unpermitted use is actually a justification for denial. right? And I have a difficulty with that.
And I don't want to actually say that because, like I stated, I don't have the specific information as it relates to me, as it relates to the other applicant verification, whether they are there or not. It was an instance where one time we looked at the list and they weren't there, and then we looked at the list again and then they were there. And that's where the issue comes into play. Initially, when the city planner reviewed with the state in terms of the licensing requirements, the next door neighbor applicant was not on the list. However, subsequently following that, when he went back to recheck the state list, all of a sudden the person was there. So that's wherein lies the issue now. As it stands right now, I believe that applicant is on the list because, like I said, initially they were not.
Right, but she would only be on the list for the state license, not the land use, right?
Correct.
So
correct.
So still today, we don't have any proof that the land use for that business was permitted by the county. So we're using that lack of information to deny something else.
Okay. One of the things that we can do based on the questions that you have is you could recommend deferring this particular item, and then we can bring it back with the specifics as it relates to the questions that you're asking. Because unfortunately, I don't have the level of detail that you're seeking. I do believe, though, like I stated previously, the fact of the matter is it was initially checked and it was not on the list, and then it was on the list. Another thing to note is that DeKalb County was doing childcare differently, which is the reason why we adopted our particular ordinance. They were giving permits for 3 or less, and the city was not, because the city ordinance that was adopted was only from 4 to 6 and then 7 or greater. So I don't know if the other individual has some type of documentation from the county that indicates that they were approved. However, if you recommend deferral, we can get that information if you all choose, and then you can make your decision as it relates to this particular item at a later time.
I would most certainly think that we staff should, as much as information as we can get, up until a certain day. I did have a conversation with Chris, and there wasn't any other documentation provided to say that land use was permitted. So I just want to make sure that we're not recommending denial for a use that we can't actually prove was a legitimate use to begin with.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the one thing that me and Councilman Cobble have discussed is what constitutes a use under the zoning ordinance, and whether or not compliance with a regulatory measure like obtaining an occupation tax certificate is a prerequisite for a use designation. And the law is fairly clear that a use or the failure to obtain an occupation tax certificate, or what we call a business license, is not necessarily a zoning measure or it would not necessarily affect your zoning. I haven't researched that chapter and verse, but that should be a part of the analysis. If it's the will of the council to defer it, we should be clear that we may defer it and discover that the failure of this prior use, in air quotes, to this person to obtain an occupation tax certificate may not matter. It may not matter. And I'm not, as I sit here now, I'm not saying that it does not matter, but I don't want their council to get the impression that if this prior use, this individual did not obtain a business license from either DeKalb County, I guess we know that the person didn't get one from the city of Stonecrest, so the person didn't get one from DeKalb County or from the state of Georgia, that the use would not matter for purposes of zoning. It still might. It still might. Because the ordinance doesn't say proper use or permitted use. It just talks about a use. And so now we can change our ordinance and say that it has to be a proper use, or it has to be properly permitted and consistent with all city regulations in order to constitute a use within the meaning of the zoning ordinance. But today it does not say that. And so so council will figure that out in advising the city on this as part of the deferral.
If I may, so the staff will do the research for the distance requirements in terms of issuing this SLUP today. If in their research they don't find that the neighbor had a proper permit, then the onus shifts to the neighbor to establish that they did, and to establish whether or not they have what's called a legal nonconforming use. And then that's when whether or not they had a business license or things like that come into play. But in this instance, we're looking for a zoning permit and a validly issued zoning permit. And if the neighbor has a validly issued zoning permit, then we cannot issue this one because of the distance requirement. If they do not, then staff can make their recommendation based off of their other findings of fact. If that neighbor then says, well, no, I think I do have a valid issued zoning permit, then the onus shifts to the neighbor to establish that they have a zoning permit.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. I don't know that, speaking with some of the members of the planning commission within the last 3 or 4 days or so, that subject matter had not been brought up. We just saw that it was within 1,000 feet, and it was an easy no. There's already that use in place, but we had not required the neighbor to prove that they had either a proper permit for their use or was allowed to operate that use without a permit. So, and we've had similar cases where there was a letter from the county that said you didn't need a permit because A, B, C, and D, and that's fine. I just want to make sure that we've done everything we can to make sure that we've asked that neighbor to prove that that use was an approved use by the county before we use it as a rationale or justification to deny the applicant before us.
Once again, I believe that the city planner has done that due diligence, but I can re-verify that and bring that back to you in detail.
I appreciate it. Even if it just says that, that's fine, just so we know kind of what we're working with.
So do we need to open a public hearing to then determine the borough? All right. I move that we open a public hearing for SLUP 19-001.
Second.
All right, properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing is now open. I will take the first, we've heard from staff. Is the applicant here? All right, there is the applicant. So we'll just start with all in favor. Yeah, I think you got to come say some words. I don't know if I can just take your hand.
She's the applicant, right?
Yeah.
So she gets her time to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah. She was.
Oh, no, I thought you called for all those who were in favor of before the applicant had the opportunity.
But she can do, she's part of that.
You can be of, yeah.
Mhm.
You can be for. Why not?
Night, everyone. I wasn't certain how this whole thing played out. And I just decided I'll come anyway because, I had the sign up. I invited my neighbors, and out of respect, I thought I'd still come because I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be saying, what I'm supposed to be doing. But yes, I did apply for to have a personal care home there to take care of 4 or 6 people. 4 right now because that's all my house can accommodate. I was told by the city that, as she told on the story, I looked, there was no sign there that there was somebody else close to me. And they did too. And that was, initially there was none. So then we went ahead. Then, as she said, somebody showed up and all of that. So I still carried out, I was given a stop to it. And then I was like, okay, well, we started the process all over again. And here I am. I presented my case a couple of weeks or 2 weeks ago. The staff denied it based on, yes, the distance. I did speak with my neighbors. And they were like, okay, we don't have a problem with the distance because it's too, we're doing separate things. And there's more than enough. And I'm sure it's not the concern of the council, whether it's for the competition of the business, but I'm sure it's for the development of the community. But this is a home-built business. It's not a business that's going to have people coming in or inviting traffic. It's for senior citizens that I'm taking care of. I'm a nurse by profession. I'm a registered nurse. And I decided every day I'm at the hospital and I'm just coming from work. And, So why not just extend the services that I see that we are in need of in the community for people to take care, for someone to take care of these patients when we send them home who need additional help. And so I decided I would start a home of my own, and I would take care of 4 or maybe 5. You know, right now it's only 4. That's all I can accommodate. People in my home. I was told that I needed to get this permit. And so by doing my due diligence, I'm going through the process of getting everything that I need. That's why I applied for it. I applied to the state. I applied to all the branches that I need to apply to get this permit to start my home. It wasn't with the intent to, I didn't know it was going to be something as broad as this, or, you know, as demanding as it turns out to be. I have lived in this community for over 25 years. I do own my home here. I know back last week, a lot of people were thinking that, you know, asked me, why did I come to this community to look for a home? And I'm trying to say, I've lived here most of my life. Like everybody else, I had a house here when Stonecrest was not even a city, or when this was all not developed at all. So I have, my kids grew up here, you know, we all grow here. So yeah, we are else than to look right in my community to help the people who I'm around. So that was it. I mean, it's a small business. It's my way of giving back to the community, my years of being a nurse in the hospital. That's all this is that I'm asking for, not something to have to affect the traffic, as people are saying. My folks are not even driving. There are people who are not driving. There are people who are not going to work. There are people who will have trachs and peg tubes and Foleys and catheters and stuff that people cannot take care of their home. That's all I'm going to be doing there. Nothing extravagant, nothing big, nothing, no signs nor anything to devalue anyone's property. I mentioned that, think of it as a home with 6 people living in there. The 4 people are myself and whomever else is helping me to take care of them. That's all it is. And I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just asking for permission to do this. If it's granted, I'll be grateful. If it's not, then I'm already having, you know, because under 3, we already have that established. So with your blessing, I'll continue. Without it, then I'll have to seek something else.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. Any more in favor?
Personally, I'm for anything that takes care of elders. Elders do not cause crime in the community. I think there is no reason to deny her permit. And that is just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Seeing no more? Those that are opposed?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Barbara Lee, I think all of you know me, 3507 Hunter Space Drive. I am opposed to this slurp being issued. I've been before you. I spoke at the zoning meeting also. I opposed it there. And it's because of the fact, number one, we have in excess of 100 personal care and youth type homes in District 5 already. We're already overflowed. The other part is that the location of that home, unless I am mistaken, but I don't think I am, I don't see how that home can hold up to 6 people. She was asked, I think, how many bedrooms at the last meeting. I don't think that was ever stated. But also where that home is located is a point of congestion on Panola Road. And I have to travel Panola Road to get to the grocery store, to get to my druggist, to get to my bank. So I don't care what time of day, but especially from midday to time people go and come from work. In the mornings, if you're leaving early, it's congested at that point. So I am a senior citizen, and I live in a community where every home, except maybe 2 or 3, are senior citizens. And we have ambulances coming in our neighborhood all time of night. They don't have the sirens on, but they have the red lights. So when I see those red lights, I get up to see where is it going. So there is a problem. If she has the type patients that she's talking about, there will be times that they will need that service. And I'm really worried about whether they would be able to get in and get out like they should. It's a very close place, and I'll post it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none, I'm going to take a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, the motion to close public hearing.
All right.
Second.
Properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right. Hearing is closed. Staff?
Yes, sir. Once again, the Planning Commission recommended denial. Of course, this evening you have the options to approve, deny, or defer the item. So it's completely up to you all what you would like to recommend as it relates to this particular item.
I have a couple of questions.
Sir.
The opposition, well, the rule says you cannot have 2 of them together. If this one is less than 3 or 4 people, does that still apply?
Yes, because of the new ordinance that was passed, the ordinance was passed up to 6 individuals and
Right.
7 or more. So anywhere from 0 up to 6, you would go through the process of obtaining a special land use permit and obtaining your business license. Currently, because that's what we've passed. These 2 properties happen to be right next to each other. And that is the reason why initially it was recommended for denial, because of the state website indicating that there was already an existing facility right adjacent to this property. However, as I stated to Councilmember Cobble, we could go back and completely verify that information because of her concern, but that was the reason.
I want this sorted out before we make that kind of decision. Councilwoman Cobble, I'll leave this on you.
I move to defer.
All right.
Second.
There have been properly motioned in second. All in favor for deferral? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The city manager.
Mayor, thank you. Be very brief. I just want to thank the council for that patience with us and the staff, as especially with me as I'm trying to adjust. And I just really appreciate you guys' patience and guidance. And I look forward to more of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just quickly, can you state to which meeting you're deferring the zoning decision to?
So we do zoning on the 4th day, right?
Too tired to know.
The next week? The next one? Defer the SLUP to the next council meeting. Oh, it's got to go back to planning commission, doesn't it?
It's full cycle.
No.
Let's say your recommendation changes based on the information you do or do not find.
And it wouldn't even have to have a public hearing, because you've just had the public hearing. I think all you got to do is then get the information you want from staff, and then council considers and votes. I mean, you can do anything you want, but I think we've already met the requirements for everything, other than taking action once you have the information you need.
So, but if staff changes their recommendation, would that have to go back?
All the state law requires is 1 public hearing, so if staff changes their recommendation, they could present that the next council meeting, and then we'll have another public hearing, and then you all can vote. As long as the request isn't changing, then we don't need to go through the whole process again.
City attorneys.
We have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman O'Donnell.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tomorrow, we will have at the Startup Factory at 11 o'clock, the Stonecrest Business League, with BB&T as a sponsor to talk about access to business capital. They will be highlighting what they call the LIFT Fund to help mini and small businesses. On May 21st, I have my monthly town hall meeting. And pleased to inform everyone the 100 Women, $100 million project now have 750 women entrepreneurs registered and enrolled. Met with the Small Business Administration last week, and we are pondering a third-party agreement to help these women get credentialed and open businesses in the city of Stonecrest. And lastly, something I want to recognize is that I want to thank our city manager, Julian Jackson, who met with me today, and we discussed several of my suggestions and recommendations for how the council get notified for special administrative permits. Perhaps he'll work on a policy for us, but I want to thank him for his time, and I want to thank Megan and welcome both of you to the city of Stonecrest.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Good night.
Don't come, man.
All
I'm
right.
good.
Madam McCall.
Jekyll Island, pray for me. I make
You go. All right.
well, probably about 5 o'clock in the morning. Here by 9. Pray for me.
All right. Safe travels.
I dedicate, you know.
Yes. We love that. Glad to see you.
Might well answer if
We're going to close out. Folks that are here or watching or seeing us on playback or tape, know this, folks. We're going to be successful, easy or hard. Easy or hard. We're going to be successful. I can promise you that. So I'm okay with folks being mad at me. I'm all right with it, because at the end of the day, hopefully, legacy-wise, somebody look back and say one day that we as a team and that we as a council and the mayor at this point in time did the best that we could do. And I think that we're doing very well. Everybody's just not going to be happy. I resigned to that fact. However, this is why we work as a collaborative team to do the best that we can do. But we're going to be successful, period, point blank, in the story. Those that don't think it, live long enough. You'll see. I'll take an adjournment.
Second.
Properly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Get ready to go.